Have you mated with a minor before? Phrasing!
Minors, not minors.
Welcome to The Grooming. For the remainder of your time at the Academy, we will be instructing you on how to rise and serve the greater good. The grooming of the minors. I feel like if we thought about this for 4 seconds, maybe we could have come up with a different name. Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're talking about the new dystopian romance, CONFORM by Ariel Sullivan, which was published thanks to George Bush's daughter, Jenna, who thinks she created the mashup of...
It's a new genre. You know what it is? It's dystopian. We introduced you all to our first 1,000 Voices book that we're publishing called CONFORM by Ariel Sullivan. Dystomance combines elements of dystopian, fiction, and romance.
This book is really disappointing. I gave it a 1 star. I love dystopian, but after Silver Elite, which I also read this year, it feels more like dystopian is being used as set dressing and nothing of substance is being done with using dystopian as your genre of choice, which sort of, as the reader, feels like, what's the point? Someone asked me, is this worse than Silver Elite? Which I wouldn't say it's better, it's just bad in different ways. Neither of them really made clear what was important to them in the writing of a dystopian. I think it's not too much to ask for an adult novel to do more than just, the government's bad, now let's kiss. But the way that this book differs from Silver Elite is the character's choices and motivations in Silver Elite make no sense for who she is as a person. In this book, CONFORM, the characters, I can't say, well, that doesn't make sense for who they are as a person because they're such empty shells that they really don't have any characterization from which they would make like choices that make sense to them either way. They could do anything and I'd be like, I guess, because I don't really know who they are, because they are nothing. The plot is also nothing. The world that we're supposed to have built is also nothing. There's nothing to be mad at these characters for personally, like I am with the characters from Silver Elite, because they are 3 separate piles of nothing in a love triangle together. How can a bunch of nothings be part of an interesting love triangle?
Not since like Hunger Games or The Summer I Turned Pretty has there been a love triangle like this. And I was one team, I've changed teams. But what's so amazing is it's like a feminist story too. So we're all Team Emmeline.
They can't. And not only are they given no thought. Wow, I'm just ranting right off the bat here. Neither is the world, and definitely neither is the language used in this book, even just the word choice. Because I understand that the lower class is broken down into majors and minors, capital M's. But when you write the sentence, have you ever mated with a minor before? It sounds like a very different thing than what you were going for. And some thought and intentionality should not be too much to ask from a dystopian book. I had to bust out my learned skills to break down how all of this went wrong and why this book is just not good from a craft standpoint. And I did that with the help of today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. I've talked about how I've used Skillshare writing classes to help me review books better. I think one of the best classes that I have ever taken on Skillshare is Daniel Jose Older's The 4 C's of Storytelling. I use this to break down books, even though it's not supposed to be review advice, it's writing advice, but it's so helpful to me because I use it to break down when books work and when books don't work, which is the case for today. The 4 C's are character, conflict, context, and craft. Older says these are the 4 pillars of a good story, but they don't just work in isolation. All of them have to work together in order to create a great story and a well-crafted story that resonates with readers and makes an impact. If you don't know, Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with a wide variety of topics for you to be able to learn about and take your hobby or your side hustle to the next level. They have cooking, illustration, writing, productivity. You can take their writing advice and use it as a template to see if the books that you're reading did what they set out to do and did it well. But again, it's not just writing and reviewing in my case. You can find classes to teach you on Skillshare to master whatever craft you're trying to work at. Like this holiday season, if you're making a lot of new recipes, Skillshare can teach you how to elevate your cooking skills. Whatever you're trying to work at, get better at, be it a hobby or your side hustle or whatever artistic endeavor that you're interested in, Skillshare has the class to take you from beginner to pro. I highly recommend this if you are trying to learn how to do in-depth reviews. The first 500 100 people to click that link in my description or use the QR code will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Plus, you can gift Skillshare memberships to your friends and your family. You can get started today creating your next video essay, reviewing better, writing better, or making sourdough or doing watercolor painting. You can learn all of that and more with Skillshare. Just click that link below to get started today, and thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. All right, let me give you the synopsis, and then we will go through the 4 C's of this book: characters, conflict, context, and craft, and then I will give you a beat for beat breakdown. I suggest you get a beverage because I anticipate me being here a while. It's gonna be a long day. Lock in. We're starting this at 9 a.m. Let's see what time we finish. This book also only got published because Jenna Bush Hager had a play date with the author, and the author said, "I'm writing a book," and now we're here with this book. So meritocracy where? I guess all you have to be is friends with a former president's daughter in order to get published now. We've got white women complaining about DEI in publishing being the reason why they can't get published, when in reality, the reason why you're not getting published is because meritocracy is dead, and in fact, money is what gets you a book deal. So here's the synopsis. In the far future, one young woman finds herself torn between 2 loves and 2 sides of a rebellion boiling under the surface in this first novel of a sweeping dystopian romance trilogy. And Jenna Bush has made it explicitly clear that this is a trilogy of trilogies. We're doing 9 books. I have no idea why. It's like doing 9 courses at a restaurant, but then you find out that all the food is just air. Centuries after a catastrophic world war nearly decimated the human population, a city arose from the ashes ruled by an elusive and technologically advanced group called the Elum. At 27, Emmeline, main character, lives in limbo, wasting away her days in a job sorting ancient human art for destruction and waiting to be selected as a mate for a procreation contract. Where others look forward to being chosen, Emmeline has never felt like she fit into a society where a person's worth is determined by constantly monitored genes, health, and the ability to procreate. She struggled to keep her discomfort secret, but when she is finally chosen, her mate is revealed to be a member of the Elum named Colin, a man who seems to be harboring secrets of his own. It is the first time an Elum has taken a mate in decades, leaving Emmeline and others baffled as to why she was chosen. Soon she is swept into the dangerous game of courting, capital C, filled with ball gowns, lavish dinners, and watchful eyes where one wrong move can mean elimination. While parts of this elite lifestyle are unexpectedly appealing, the more embroiled she becomes, the more she sees its dark underbelly and a rebellion rising in secret. Colin is confusing, both cold and protective, and worse, she finds herself drawn to the very last person she should be falling for, Hal, one of the resistance leaders. As she draws close to Colin and Hal, the Elum exercise their power in increasingly brutal ways, forcing Emmeline to question everything, most of all, whether she'll have to give up her heart and even her life to stop them. For the majority of reading this, I was convinced that this was written by a conservative who did not want to say that they were conservative. Having finished it, I'm unsure. I do think at like bare minimum, before I opened this, I saw that the author had said that she was inspired to write this during COVID because, and I quote, "Sooner or later we'll all have these chips in our hand and we'll just be able to scan it and know if we're sick or if we have problems. Then they'll be able to tell us where we can and can't go based on it." Which, if you lived through COVID in the United States, you might feel like, yeah, that's a little bit of a red flag. If you're an ex-fundamentalist, it's an additional red flag because the whole microchips thing is tied to evangelical end times beliefs, mark of the beast, yada yada. Again, having finished it, I'm not sure if this was written by a conservative or just written by somebody who didn't put an awful lot of thought into what they were writing. 4 C's. Let's start with craft. The craft in this dystopian romance, like this is a book that says it's trying to be dystomance, as Jenna Hager said.
It's a new genre. Elements of dystopian, fiction, and romance. Often with sizzling love stories, a post-apocalyptic setting, and strong female characters.
First of all, this is not a new genre. And second of all, this is not the quality that I expect from either romance nor dystopian, nor when you mash them together. This is not a good adult romance or a good adult dystopian. It did neither of these things well. It didn't take me like long to read this book once I really set my mind to it, and yet it felt like it dragged because it's so much air. It's just swallowing air. There's nothing here. It was jarring opening this book because it reads like I was expecting it to read like an adult book, but the way that it's written feels like every other dystopian book that I read in 2012 written for young adults, which is especially weird because the main character is 27 and both of her love interests are 32, which is my age. The dialogue reads like it was learned via watching Riverdale. There is some spice in this. I would call it maybe 2 chili peppers, I guess, maybe 1.5. I don't know, your scale is going to be different than mine, but it's nearly indistinguishable from other books I've read, and because the characters are such empty shells, like you could have swapped in other characters that I would have read before, and I wouldn't be able to tell you which scene is which because it's so divorced from emotion and the particular people that we're writing about. And and also it's using like the same language I've heard in every single other 2 chili pepper scene. So if you have read not A Court of Mist and Fury, but A Court of Thorns and Roses, you have read this spicy scene. It's the bundle of nerves at the apex of my thighs. You know the kind. Nothing new is being done here. Nothing particular to the characters, like unique to them, is being done here. It doesn't serve to emotionally build them in any way, either between you as the reader and them or them between each other. Its biggest crime though is being derivative and dull instead of being like weird and gross. But again, the dullness is in most part because of the lack of characterization of our characters. So let's get on to our second C, which is characters. This book tries to convince you that it's doing something. It's not. It's not doing anything. The characters are so flimsy that they might as well have been printed on recycled Post-it notes. The protagonist, again, is 27. Her 2 love interests are 32 years old. They are my age, but none of these people are acting my age. They don't really, it's not like a character arc. They just glide from trope to trope. Like the author fed them a diet of favorite quotes from other books that she's read and favorite tropes from other books that she's read, rather than cultivating real people with real personalities. But the narrative has these characters treating things that are a big deal, like class war, with all of the urgency of like a mildly inconvenient thing. Aw, shoot, I'm lower class, acting like I just watched Home Alone, and you know how when Kevin's carrying his groceries home and the bag falls and all the groceries fall on the ground? That's sort of like the amount of urgency that they're giving the real world problems. I felt like it felt like actors who don't know how to emote. And also all of this like societal collapse is coming second to the bad love triangle. It didn't blend romance and dystopian so much as it like just failed at both simultaneously. So third C, context. For a book that says it's dystomance, the dystopian part feels like not even less than an afterthought. It felt, I've said this before, where a book feels like it was pasted together with spit, a prayer, and a dry glue stick. That is this. Hastily duct taped even. The world that they inhabit is supposedly a contrast between like the glittering upper levels, which you only see one of. I'm not really sure where the Elum, the like highest of the classes, reside, but you hang out with the elite, and then in the 2 lower classes are the minors and then the majors who like live in like a subterranean level. So you have like glittering upper class versus like dark caverns. And then in between is our main character who lives in this sort of like sanitized gray reality where her uniform is literally gray. And because the world building, the craft part of this, is so thin, you poke holes in this class dynamic pretty quickly, but also you're the only one asking questions because the main character isn't. But then even like rules that you establish, like you're not allowed to have friends if you are part of the lower class, are broken immediately, and the main character doesn't really think about this even while actively breaking the rule. The bad government people are sort of like somewhere over there, so you don't really see that context, which is not helpful when you're already not understanding the world that you're in. It's a dystopian the same way that a cardboard backdrop is a city. It's there, Don't lean on it. And then the conflict is our fourth C. And the central conflict of this is the love triangle. It's less of a love triangle and just sort of a shapeless scribble, because these people have only known each other for a week. The two love interests aren't like the contrast, the dichotomy that they're supposed to be. They're just sort of interchangeable cardboard cutouts who show up to have charged discussions with the heroine, one from the lower class and one from the highest class, the Elum, so that you feel her and all of her non-emoting pulled between the two. Oh no, what's she gonna do? Meanwhile, the dystopian world the supposedly dystopian world that should supply the actual stakes here is shoved into the background, and the main character is just spending the whole book asking questions about it. I don't know, bitch. You tell me. She can't explain any of this. She understands the society that she inhabits with all of the understanding of somebody trying to decode a message who doesn't know what decoding a message is. It's like if you handed an encrypted message to my 6-year-old and said, hey, decode this, he'd be like, what are you talking about? But since you're stuck in her perspective, you just end up being confused the whole time, and that's boring. It's a bad narrative choice because the reader is stumbling through the plot blindfolded while the character is not putting basic pieces together, and it makes them feel more stupid, which having the main character need to catch up to the reader is always a very boring choice. And you're hoping that the love triangle will sustain the readers. In the meantime, it doesn't, because these characters are empty shells. And you're hoping that it will sustain them up until the end, where you have this like shocking reveal that felt like a nothing burger again. So as a result, the story can't use the dystopian elements for meaningful conflict because neither you nor the protagonist know what's happening or why it really matters. I do expect books that are doing dystopias, especially ones that are doing like class status determines what plane of existence or like area of the world you live in. I do expect those to be well written. And an example of this that I think is extremely well done is Spin of Fate by A.A. Vora. I'm on the sequel now, which is Wheel of Wrath. So in Spin of Fate, you have this world that is separated into 4 planes of existence. Now, that's similar to what we're doing here in Conform, except in this, everything is meticulously thought out, and I understand this world very well. And I had to work to understand it because this author is smart, whereas I tried to work to understand Conform and didn't because the book is poorly written. So in Spin of Fate, you have a world with 4 planes of existence that you go to based on how moral you are, and your morality determines your class status, except it's not that simple. So you have like the highest plane of existence, the secondary, the lowest, and the lowest of the low. This is a fantasy dystopian mashup that I think does this idea really well. But in order to do that, the author had to put an awful lot of thought into it. And so that's my standard now for when I see a dystopian world that's talking about class is Spin of Fate. If you want a graphic novel that talks about class dynamics, this one was pretty good. This is from Lights, the singer. She created an entire graphic novel that is about combining dystopian elements and fantasy elements. The story gets a little weird, but kind of cool at the end. But I thought that the depiction of division based on class status was really cool and interesting here. But another example of class status dystopian with sci-fi elements, which Conform kind of has, but another book that has more sci-fi elements is Gear Breakers by Zoni Hanamakuta. This is so good. This also heavily features a romance, but the class dynamics that are part of this are huge. It's so integral, and the characters are so stand out. Now, this is a young adult book, as is Spin of Fate. And both of these are better written and honestly feel less juvenile than Conform does, which is for adults. It's hard to care about the fate of the world when the book itself seems unsure what the world even really is, and when the majority of the conflict isn't the world, but how 3 shells of humans are in the most boring love triangle. But if that sounds good to you, read it. You're an adult. You can do what you want to do. Ready to get through 65 pages of highlights together? Me neither. Before chapter 1 opens, it says, I've never been good at anything, or at least that's what I've been told my whole life. I disagree though. I've always been good at fucking things up. This is one of those things. I don't know what she's talking about because she's never been given the choice to fuck anything up. I have no idea what we're talking about. Chapter 1. Age 27. Sex female. Weight 58 kilograms. Height 176 centimeters. Genetic defects minor. Hereditary. procreation status approved. Our main character, Emmeline, is in the ancient art section of the archives where she works. My job was to destroy piece by piece the remnants of the world ancient humans had laid waste to in the last war. Elsewhere in the archives, my friend Lo sat in the books, capital B, section. She's not supposed to have friends, and yet within the first paragraph we are calling her my friend Lo. That is supposed to be dangerous, and yet here we are. One of her only other friend before this was taken and assumedly murdered, and yet she is not scared off enough to have friends ever again, even though she laments on how they're not supposed to have friends. I don't get it. I was one of the many women in gray who had trained for this, waiting until our fertility was determined optimal and matched to an elite male to fulfill our role for the greater good. Thoughts, hopes, wants, they were unnecessary, a distraction. The illum that ran the city provided the minor defects, myself included, with everything we needed. What was left to think about? And yet think she does. Like, think aplenty. I'm gonna be honest, I don't understand her job. She doesn't understand her job, and this doesn't raise any questions amongst the masses. She is given like holographic images of art that existed in our world, such as, the first one we see is the Mona Lisa, and she's told to delete them. This is her job. I don't really know why this is her job, other than to make an opportunity for, this is about to happen, Hal, the resistance leader, to show up and start talking to her about art. Because assumedly the Elam could just delete the stuff, and by not just deleting it and making the grays, the minor defect people, delete them, the Elam, the people in charge who are trying to manipulate all of these people, are putting themselves in a position where they are going to be asked questions, like logical questions. Why are we deleting all of this art when you could just delete it yourselves? And I honestly don't know. I don't know why they make them do this as a job. So she is a minor defect because, are you ready for it? Are you ready? Heterochromia. Heterochromia. She has a blue eye and a brown eye. Heterochromia. So she's a minor defect rather than a major defect. Now, this book does not delve into what happens to people who are born with like missing limbs. Sleep token reference. This book should have had a conversation about eugenics, but instead the major and minor defects are all just like weird eye colors. I don't know. I have no idea why. So if you're waiting for it to have a conversation about eugenics as far as like disabilities rather than heterochromia, you're not getting that. That's not in here. So she deletes the hologram of the Mona Lisa, and she thinks that she's not sure why the Elam had us doing tasks their technology could easily perform, why they allowed us to see what came before. It was as if sorting these relics showed us how easily they were willing to toss aside the things they saw no value in. Wow! Hit us over the head with it and then never think about it again, why don't you? This is stupid. So then a guy shows up immediately. Chapter 1, he just shows up. I could have asked a million questions. Who are you? What are you doing here? Are you authorized to be here? Why are you so handsome? Girl, this guy's name is Hal, and he has another eye defect where his eye looks like a starburst, she says. And he's there to talk to her about art. And he's wearing all blue because he's a major defect where she's a minor defect. So he lives in, I forget what the Undercity is called, except it was called one thing, except he says it's not called that. It's actually called the Beneath. She thinks about how I had been told since my earliest years that I was beneath the elite. The academy, which is where they send the minor children, preached this every day, intermingling with the harshness of my birth father's teachings. We weren't permitted to question the Elam. Perhaps the elite had lessons that consisted of more than how to be a compliant vessel for offspring. So women that are minor defects like her, the women who wear gray and live in, the minor society and just do weird random jobs like deleting holograms of art, are also trained to be vessels for elite offspring. If we weren't learning how to get to the clouds by being the perfect mate, capital M, we learned horrifying lessons about the last war. Ancient humans had torn themselves apart and wiped themselves out. Their conflicting beliefs and ideologies created an irreparable divide that had resulted in near extinction. The Elam had knitted it all back together, saving humanity. Now, I don't know how exactly long ago this happened, and if there is like an overturn of Elam, how one becomes an Elam. I genuinely don't fucking know. The Academy portrayed the Elam as saviors of mankind. Gods and religion had no place here. We could only trust in the Elam, unseen yet always watching. Which is weird because that makes the Elam sound god-like. They don't know anything about them. They're very removed from the Elam, especially in the minor and the major defect societies. They are completely removed from the Elam. I don't know how one becomes an Elam or became an Elam. I have nothing but questions about the Elam. But when it said that religion and gods had no place here, that was another red flag for me, because I'm like, wait, so are we making another dystopian where we're like, we've eradicated religion and now we're serving men? Because I've read a lot of Christian dystopians, both in my time as an evangelical and my time as an ex-evangelical, one of which I read was Defire by Man Defender. I don't know why she didn't go by a different name, but that's what happened in that book, and that's typically what happens in a Christian dystopian, because it's always about Christian persecution complex. So this was like confusing for me. Are you seeing this? No wonder I thought that this might be Christian fiction. It even looks like the same thing. Putting them next to each other in my editing software, I'm just like flabbergasted. So she is thinking about how she was taught that should you be successful in your dedication to the greater good, both capital G's, which I'm still not sure what that means, and matched with an elite mate, you will find your true work has just begun. Every meeting with your proposed mate will be watched by the elite collective. Your ability to perform publicly is as critical to your success as your ability to carry an offspring. Follow the Elam's protocol, abide by the rules of the minor defect population, and constantly seek self-improvement, and you will rise, fulfilling your use for the greater good. She also thinks about how her mother was not one of the minors. She and her father are part of the elite, and she was taken from them when she was a kid and put into the academy because she was a minor. Okay, so now that we're done flashing back to important info, she starts to talk to Hal, Starburst in the Eye guy, who's a major defect wearing blue. And so they're talking, and she's never talked to anybody in blue before. And she's like, oh my gosh, we agree on something. I agree with somebody wearing blue. And she thought before she saw his defect that he was elite. And she's like, before, it was a relief that he and I agreed when I thought he was part of the elite. But now I see that he's in blue. Oh my gosh. That's so bonkers how my standards change when it's somebody from the lower class. Your kind calls us monsters. Are you a monster? Would you like to find out? Oh, brother. You don't seem as terrible as the Elam say. Do you believe everything the blessed Elam tell you? Doesn't everyone? Hey, he's supposed to be winning her over to his favor, right? He's a revolutionary rebellion member. That's what he's there for. Gotta tell ya, he did the worst possible job doing this. He didn't do any work to ingratiate himself with her, to sort of feel out where she was at. Just immediately jumped into shitting on the Elam in front of her. The Elam are the reason we're all here. The Elam valued things of beauty, the world above, a glittering display of it. They flirt a little bit. He's like, oh, I think you like looking at me. If it makes you feel better, the feeling is mutual. My heart fluttered. He liked looking at me. You just met! No one had ever told me I was worthy of being seen. We're in chapter 1, and you just met this man. How long have you worked down here? 10 years. So he's like, all right, the sun's up. I need to go back beneath. And it doesn't capitalize beneath. And for some reason, she's like, beneath? Don't you mean low town? Maybe he calls it beneath. Like, you can assume that he means low town. This is just stupid. This is just stupidly written. He said beneath, not low town. It didn't measure up to what I'd been told about the major defects who wore blue. How did we already jump here? He leaves, and it says, I blew out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. So we have that line and heterochromia in chapter 1. Like, so you can understand why this feels like it was written to be a 2012 young adult book. The dialogue, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding, the heterochromia. So then her friend, Lo, is waiting for her after work, after getting rid of books all day. Sent a lot of books to their doom. Not a single one was saved today. I don't know how they decide. Like, I guess they're like told to like delete certain ones and not others. Again, the fact that there's no automated system, like all of this doesn't make sense. I don't really understand. And she says to her friend, does it ever bother you that you're destroying things that might be important? Why would you question the Elam after you just didn't want to question the Elam? Nope, Lo says, if it was important, the Elam would keep it. Now she, it says, has absolute trust in the Elam, Lo does. Lo doesn't share any of her concerns, so I don't know why she would question the Elam in front of this person. And this proves to be detrimental later to her, which was really stupid. Even though she says that she swore after her only friendship before ended badly, that she would never do this again. Friendships weren't permitted among those in gray. Most women in gray only saw competition thanks to the academy. If the woman next to you trounces you, she will be a contributing factor in the color you wear. Follow the ELU's protocol, abide by the rules of the minor defect population, and constantly seek self-improvement, blah, blah, blah. Have you ever thought about not looking at the pictures and focusing on the screen? You could just push the buttons. It'd be more productive, Lo says to her. So I don't know how this is her friend. It's not like that. I don't understand. And why she has a friend. Why, if a person says they're not willing to question the Elam, why you would be friends with them and why, I don't understand. Like, I just don't get it. You said that you couldn't have friends anymore because your last friend ended up dead. Well, at least she's gonna say that. So she finds out she's been approved for procreation, which means she gets a mate, an elite mate. So somebody above her station, because you're not allowed to procreate with minors or majors. Only the elite procreate, and sometimes they take minor mates so that they can create more of a gene pool. They have a chip, like I mentioned the chip earlier. They have a chip in their arm called a MIND, mind chip. It's inserted into their left wrist at birth, providing the Elam system with constant updates on our health, down to our genetic makeup. I had to scan the chip everywhere for the hovering transportation pods, capital P, for meals, for work. We also learned that there's something called the sanctuary where pregnant women outside of cohabitation agreements were sent. And a cohabitation agreement is when you get into a procreation agreement, you can either get your elite, and it's always men, by the way. It always seems to be men. It's never elite women do not have babies with minor men, which I'm not sure why, other than like patriarchy, maybe, but if this book is doing patriarchy, it doesn't do it very well. The person who's ultimately in charge is a woman, so like when we put women in charge and when we subjugate them is sort of willy-nilly here. Sorry, so a cohabitation agreement means you reside with the person that you're having his baby, or if you don't have a cohabitation agreement, then you are sent to the sanctuary to have your baby, and then you don't get to raise your child. You don't get to raise your children, period, but if you're a minor, you get your children taken away from you, or if your child is a minor or a major, they are taken away from you. And then there's also Lowtown, which is where all the majors live, and then up in the clouds is where the elite live. So she takes a pod up to the elite society. I should mention that men who are minor defects were separated they go to an academy, the minor defects. They are separated from the women after their 8th year and trained to serve the elite up in the clouds. And there's different hues of gray that denote your station even within like the minor population. Everybody in this world has an identification number, and it's like assigned to your MIND, your mind chip. I don't know what mind stands for, to be honest with you. It's just called a mind chip, even though it's in your arm. But the elite believe that it's barbaric and disrespectful to reduce someone to just their identification number. So she goes up to the clouds and she is thrust into the clutches of 2 women, Rose and Violet, who are going to spruce her up to go meet her mate. She thinks about how she was born in the clouds, and if not for her heterochromia, she could have lived there. It would have been her home. She would have been part of the elite society. If not for the heterochromia, she's never seen somebody else with a visual defect in the academy or working in the archives where she works. The minor women all looked from the outside to be unflawed, whatever defect they had invisible. No one ever spoke of what landed them in gray. Wow, how convenient for us to not have that conversation about eugenics. So she's supposed to be in the courting phase before she gets into the procreation phase. And the courting phase sometimes comes with trials, but she's not going to enter into trials. We just leave that out of this entirely. If she fails to meet the standards, her public courting and cohabitation rights will be revoked revoked, and she will be living in the sanctuary quarters until her offspring is taken from her. And if they produce elite offspring, that child will be raised in the elite society. They wax her whole body, and they're like, prepping her to look good. Meanwhile, she's thinking about the one friend that she had that disappeared, Alice. When we get out of here, we can find a way to run away, she had told me. I'd been 15. The academy forbade friendships and connections of any kind. We find more out about Alice later. I'm honestly not sure if at the end of the book, if it was referencing Alice or referencing Hal, the rebellion guy. I don't know. And frankly, I don't care. She's given a gift called a lens, which goes over one of her eyes and causes her to have no more heterochromia, at least temporarily. They put her in lace underwear. They've waxed her whole body. They put eyeliner on her. They put her in a dress that she calls akin to liquid gold. And now she is ready to meet her mate, capital M. In the next chapter, she's recalling that her parents, the elite people, well, her father in particular, would say things when she still lived with them, like, send her away. She's not welcome in our house. The fact that you see her at all is a disgrace, he says to her mother. She'll be taken away in 2 moons. It is not soon enough. I've dedicated my life to the Elam. She will not take that from me. And then afterwards, her life below was primitive and barren in comparison. I had been living a bleak existence, waiting in perpetual solitude. We all just accepted it. I don't know how or why you all just accepted it, but okay. Maybe a part of me wanted to be beguiled by the beauty surrounding me. Another part, the part that didn't fit, couldn't stand the divide. When she's explaining how she's, finally seeing the elite society. I honestly don't remember. Did she live in the elite society and then she got kicked out for having heterochromia? I don't remember. It doesn't really matter. All of this is sort of like a blur in my mind. It's not really well written, so I'm doing my best. She ends up going and meeting her mate, who is the most beautiful man I've ever seen. Breath caught. There'd been a mistake, a catastrophic error in the system. She's thinking about the rules, which one of the rules is the mark of a suitable minor mate is obedience above all else. His name is Colin, and this book talks about his eyes looking like sapphires 1.5 million fucking times. I lost count. Like from the moment he comes on page to the moment he leaves, it's his sapphire orbs, his sapphire gaze. The sapphire stared me down. I get it. His eyes look like sapphires. I too have watched the Aristocats.
Your eyes are like sapphires. Gee. That's pretty corny though, huh?
His keen sapphire gaze traced the outlines of my lips. Just the outlines? He looked around the outlines of your lips. You were able to track that? Sure thing. And he's like, I hope I'm not a disappointment. I was expected to be treated like a vessel. Ha! A means to further humanity, yet I was asked if he, an elite, was a disappointment to me, a minor. Rule 3 is the most desirable trait will be your ability to be seen and not heard among proper society. Rule 4 is respect is demanded at all times. Failure to show respect will risk your usefulness to the greater good. Again, what is the greater good? I don't. She tells him, I didn't expect you to be kind. A worker shows up and says, hey, I need your arm so that I can register bringing you food, which in elite society, they eat actual food. In minor society, they eat slop. Talking to her mate, Colin, who she has just met with the sapphire eyes, he asks about her birth family. And one of the rules is that as a minor, she is not allowed to not answer his questions. Was your family unkind to you? Your birth family? You were born to elites. She knows that she has elite brothers, but she's never met them. I was confined to a small room, cared for by those in gray who served my family. We don't hear anything about this part of her life. I don't know who cared for her. I don't know who was motherly or fatherly towards her. I don't know who these people were. We never hear about it. It's a big chunk of her childhood, kind of important, and we just don't hear a damn thing. On their behalf, I am sorry for their unkindness. It was unwarranted. They had no right to be unkind for something you did not ask for. I stared unnerved at the man before me. His kindness felt like daggers destroying my own facade. I feel like we could have written that better. At one point it says, perhaps my defect ran deeper than heterochromia, and I was like, oh brother. He tells her, don't believe everything that you see up here in, the upper class. You're not what I expected. And she's like, you're not what I expected either. He thinks that she's disappointed in him. He's apparently a nice guy. She's like, oh no, he's gonna reject the entire match. You seem to think so poorly of the elite that you would assume I'd pass judgment so nonchalantly. None of you have ever given me a reason to think otherwise. I'm not disappointed, Emmeline. You are simply different from the minors I have encountered. Have you mated with a minor before? Have you mated with a minor before? Phrasing!
Minors, not minors.
You lost me.
I have not. This is my first mating. Like, you're gonna tell me that several adults read this book? That seems like poor phrasing. Let's change it. Nope, we didn't. The attendant comes back. He placed Colin's dish a bowl of red liquid. I immediately assumed that it's fruit punch. We didn't say any sort of texture. We just said red liquid, and I'm like, got it. Fruit punch Gatorade. She's given a salad with beets. And she's shocked because she's like, I've never had food like this before. Our nutrient system provides us with a varied offering that is best for each individual based on the information collected from the mind. He doesn't really like his soup, but he has to eat it because lycopene helps people who make baby goo make more baby goo. Better baby goo. Ew. Point is, it's tomato soup. And it wasn't until he said, I don't particularly enjoy tomatoes, that I realized that his bowl was not a bowl of fruit punch, it was fucking tomato soup. They contain lycopene, a nutrient that boosts my quality. Quality of what? I don't believe that it is an appropriate dinner conversation, Emmeline. You brought it up. You brought up the lycopene and your quality. Of course, she has a question about it. Ah! My face flushed even harder, matching his soup. Oh, so now you know it's soup. He didn't have to tell you it was soup. You called it a bowl of red liquid earlier. Now you're calling it soup. When did you learn soup? After he talked about his quality? So they are eating tomato soup or salad and beets and whatever. He watched me, something in those depths. That's half a sentence. This is a really bad chapter. And it's like chapter 3. Did anybody look at this? So he's like, all right, you're eating really enthusiastically and I need to talk to you plainly before you get really into more food. I have had a contract drawn up. I'll have a copy of it sent to you over tomorrow morning. You can look it over. Once you sign, it commences our official courting phase. When we reach the 3-moon minimum, we can commence cohabitation. It's in your best interest to have a 4-year cohabitation agreement in place to be present for our offspring. You will remain with me until the offspring goes to the academy. Most women in my position would say yes to this instantly. It was the ideal outcome. There wasn't a single mention of the sanctuary or a low town. Am I not to be judged throughout our courting phase? So like trials? Would you prefer to, anticipate my needs and successfully fulfill them?
Job's not that hard, okay? Just anticipate my needs.
Anticipating, Chip.
Would you like to be judged? I was unaware I had a say. Are you satisfied with my offer? What would you do if I said I was? I knew I was being too bold. Our next 3 moons will be eventful, Emmeline. You seem rather okay with this pairing. I'm a defect. I am aware of your status. I knew your status when I chose you. Chose me? I prolonged my bachelorhood as long as I could. I was told to take a mate. I was not given an option. The system paired us as an excellent match. I accepted. By the way, this guy's not just an elite, he's an Elum, so he's like in charge. What does that mean? I don't know. How did he become an Elum? I don't know. What's the process for that? Who knows? What's the difference between him and the other Elum who don't show up on page until the very end and you only see 2 of them? How many are there? I also don't know any of this. Again, it's just set dressing. If you lean on it, it's gonna fall apart. Won't the elite have something to say about us? I stopped caring about the elite's opinions long ago. Then I'm back-to-back instances of things flashing across people's faces, which I feel like we could have used a synonym. Then a guy named Edward shows up. And Edward is a piece of shit, which you know just by looking at him, which is a lazy writing choice. His eyes slid over me, marking my deep neckline and ample cleavage on display. My body recoiled. I don't know your friend. You wouldn't, Colin's mouth was a tight line. Emmeline is my intended mate and is not a member of high society. A defect, Edward blurted. I'm shocked that even you are made to stoop so low to take a pet forced to socialize with their kind. Barbaric, but it is for the greater good. So Edward fucks off, like Edward Cullen did in New Moon. I apologize for his rudeness. The elite are nosy and insufferable, Colin says. He had referred to the elite as an entity all night. He hadn't once said we. You are elite, right? I am not. I am the youngest member of the Elum. I had never heard of a defect mating with an Elum. Come to think of it, I had never heard of an Elum mating at all. Why did you choose me? The list of possible mates was extensive. I have my reasons. We do not find those reasons out in this book. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not sure if we ever will. I have no idea. I had no intentions of taking a mate at all. And then he mentions that there is a hierarchy among the Elam, which I only know of 3 Elam members. Him, some guy named Charles who shows up at the end for all of 2 seconds and barely says a word, and then the main lady, what is her name, Victoria? I think it starts with a V. It doesn't really matter. She's going to show up at the end, do a villain evil monologue, and then leave, end of book. This book constantly talks about chocolate cake because she's never had it before, and then she has it and she's obsessed. And then the other friend that she makes is also obsessed with chocolate cake. And then she goes home, wakes up, and she talks to her friend, Lo, even though she's not supposed to have friends. You'll get in trouble for being late, she says to Lo, for work, for, you know, deleting files of old books, I guess. Doubtful. I don't have a mate. They don't watch the mate list like they now watch you. There's too many of us to monitor all the time. You guys have arm chips. What's stopping them from monitoring you all the time? Didn't know if I bought her theory, but she might have a point. We didn't know the extent of the Elam's technology, but I knew from experience what happened to those who stepped out of line. Then why would you make a friend again? Like your friend got disappeared. Your eyes, what did they do? Is it permanent? They put a lens to cover it. I have so many questions. Me too, Lo. Me too. She tells Lo that her mate is an Elam member. Yesterday morning, my life had been consistent, predictable. Now, I had a proposed mate who accepted my status. Yeah, that is what happened. That is literally all that has happened so far. So she gets back to work, and it's now that she realizes, oh my God, yeah, that other guy who showed up yesterday, Hal. Hal finally shows up. Oh, thank goodness. We were all waiting. He's like, by the way, flowers and chocolate showed up, but I got rid of them. She says, are you fucking kidding me? This was jarring because I didn't realize she could swear. Neither did he. Her mating contract shows up and she signs it without reading it, which he gets on her case for. You don't care to know what happens after 6 moons of being barren, or if a pregnancy doesn't extend to 10 moons and it results in fetal demise? Why do you know any of that? The elite's horror stories filter their way down, even to us. I really don't understand the interactions between the lowest class and the rest. I honestly, I don't know. You know it doesn't matter what this says. I have no say. They have made thousands of women just like you, brainwashed and compliant to a cause you know nothing about. I'm a minor defect. You act like I have a choice in any of this. If I'm unsuccessful in any way, I'll be in blue. I have no purpose if I cannot fulfill my use to the greater good. And then he says that the thing that makes her beautiful is her heterochromia. They've known each other for 24 hours and they're already flirting. Within a week, they'll be having sex. We're just speed running. 96 hours passes. She doesn't hear from Colin or Hal. Maybe it had all been a test and I failed spectacularly. And also, she's still wearing the lens in her eye. The lens felt like sandpaper. If I took it out, then this silence from Colin might mean I actually failed. For some reason, the idea of being rejected by Colin bothered me. What do you mean? What do you mean for some reason? If you get rejected, then you're not fulfilling your greater good. That's sort of the whole thing. For some reason. Why? Because he's hot? I think I would be more pressed about the fact that this is a society in which if you cannot fulfill the greater good, you have no use and you're gonna end up even less on the scale of worth. Did we forget? What's wrong with your eye? Nothing is wrong with my eye. Your left eye is closed. You look ridiculous. Just take it out, Emmeline. It's bad for your eye. The Elam monitor everything. If something comes up, my mind will take care of it. He gets on her case about her wearing it just to meet her mate's demands. She finally relents and does take it out of her eye, which it was incredibly stupid for them to just leave her to her own devices. I don't understand this at all. He's right. She's right. Her mind should pick up on the fact that her eye is getting fucked up from this thing, but okay. They look at some art together that she's supposed to destroy. The title read, A Huguenot on St. Bartholomew's Day. Do you think they're saying hello or goodbye? I wouldn't know. What are the Elam doing with it? They're destroying it, I told him, hitting the delete button. I clicked for the next one, a landscape. They'll keep this one. I think they get rid of all the ones with people to erase what it was like before the war. I think anything that makes the viewer feel is a threat. How would you possibly know that? And if you have clocked that, then why is that not a red flag? But she says it might come back around again. I was convinced a lot of the items circulated endlessly, so she might get a hologram of it again for deletion. And I'm like, again, this is not a red flag? She gets told that she needs to go have a meeting with Colin, and on the way to the pod, she bumps into a guy who she recognizes somehow as her birth brother, who is an elite, not a defect. She gets like nervous and she runs away, which she's not supposed to run because her MIND chip, her mind chip, forbade it. So she gets to her beautification team again, Rose and Violet. Why are you sweaty, fledgling? I ran. So they start like, doing her makeup and stuff, and they're talking to each other in front of her for some reason. They made it to the Capitol building again. Was the one they all whisper about out there? Violet asked. They are growing more daring. Eve said 6 elite were killed. She says the Elam are a mess over it. You and Eve have grown rather close as of late. Is that why she summoned you this morning before dawn? I've been dressing Eve since she left the academy. She's an elite, Violet told Rose sternly. None of this really matters. She mentions to them that she ran into her birth brother. Did he see me like our birth father did? The elite don't see people like us, not even defects who live in Hightown and serve them, Violet said. Everyone in gray who works in the clouds lives in Hightown beneath the cloud level. So then they start getting weird, and Rose is like, there's a reason why your questions will go unanswered. Answering them can result in elimination. And Violet's like, Rose, she's a defect. Emmeline, are you close with your mate? I don't know what you mean. I've only met him once. Yes, but were you a person to him or an obligation? There's been trouble in the clouds. There are some who are tired of being told what to do by the Elam, and they are letting them know. The Elams seem to have crossed a line. Some are finally done with the Elam's illuminating rules. The Elam's illuminating rules. Oh, brother. They've gone too far with the offspring. The academy should be left alone, Rose whispered. Nestor just allows it. I forget who Nestor is. Oh, right. He runs the academy where all the kids get indoctrinated. The dual academy buildings were identical looking, 2 halves of a whole placed several hundred yards away from each other, as if something had cleaved them apart. If pushed together, the halves would form a pyramid. The elite side was a flawless gleaming white. The minor side was a black that swallowed all the light. Oh, Nestor is also an Elam. Huh. So Nestor is an Elam. I don't know how many there are. Nestor is an Elam who runs the academy. What did the Elam do to the offspring? I asked. Minor offspring are being downgraded. So they're getting downgraded to major, so they have to wear blue and live in the beneath. Eve said an elite offspring was downgraded to a minor last week. What do you mean downgraded? Would that be my offspring's destiny? Would I condemn them with my defect? How have you never thought of this before? They are calling the elite force to handle this. If these people do not stop and follow the elite, treacherous times are ahead, talking about the rebellion. If the elite force is involved at all, we should all hold our tongue. Every woman since the last war has been an obligation and a vessel. I see a lot of your kind. Many do not have a care in the world. They do not think, simply pleased to be chosen. Not you. You questioned us, pushed back during your initial meeting. I want more for us. Maybe I am done being powerless. I think you might be too. So these two are clearly like siding with the resistance or involved somehow. They are also seamstresses, and they make her very pretty dresses, which is so fun. They put her like in scraps of lace, so she's practically naked, and then they put this cloud-like dress on her, and they don't have any procreation abilities anymore, so they had to prove that they had worth, and they proved their worth by being seamstresses. My eyes snagged on a faint glowing. Did the gown glow? It wasn't the gown. My left wrist glowed brightly, encircled in rich gold. I see your procreation agreement has finally been approved. It is gold. Apparently, if you are mated to an Illum, then you have a gold glowing thing on your wrist, assumedly attached to your chip. She thinks about her friend Alice, who is the one who went missing. Together we had dreamed, crafted elaborate ideas for life after the academy, spun stories of the lost history of those bygone humans. The Elam's lessons cited us against each other. Cited us? Is that used correctly? Alice grew angrier and more outspoken until one night she was called into the headmaster's office. No one told me why my friend had seemingly disappeared until a lecture a moon later. They have holographic teachers, saying the Elam have always cherished the education of all offspring, minor and elite alike. The Elam view the proper care of these formative years as essential to our peace, while pruning rotten genes that risk diseasing everything. Distractions from the greater good threaten our progress and peace. Fail to adhere to the rules of your status and risk elimination. So she knows that you risk elimination by not adhering to the rules. How could a force like Alice just be eliminated? Even now I didn't fully accept it. I like to believe she had found that place where they wanted to go and be free together. She wishes that Alice had taken her with her, blah, blah, blah. I'm not sure, having read the end of this book, and I read the end of it twice, I'm not sure if Alice is part of the resistance or if the end is in Hal's POV. I wasn't fully sure. So she goes and talks to her mate, Colin, the Elam guy, who speaks kind of derogatory about the elite, and this is very confusing for her because he seems to hate the very people he rules. And she's like, hey, I saw who I think is my birth brother. He says, that's Philip, I work with him. So elite work for the Elam? Only a select few, those who show potential. I don't fucking understand the elite and the Elam whatsoever. I don't know what we're doing here. Oh, it's Tabitha that runs the Elam. She is responsible for the entire city. And Tabitha has told him that there will be a dinner in 6 days with some of the High Council elite to provide a united power against the rising unrest, the rebellion. I've been told you are to attend. A woman runs the elite? She has held her position for over 50 years. Tabitha is different. And there's no thought given to how most of this society is pretty patriarchal, and yet a woman runs it. Just like a brief explanation as to how we ended up here would have been fine. We get none of that. Then he tells her, hey, you're gonna get a holographic instructor in HI, and it's going to give you a hour-long session every morning of how to be prim and proper and be part of elite society, which is weird. I don't understand why they didn't do this previously. I guess maybe like it's an incentive once you have a mate to feel like you're even further a part of it, even though you're not a part of elite society. I don't know. She mentions that her hair and makeup team, her seamstresses, they're called the Starlings for some reason. I have no idea why. We're talking about the uprising, the rebellion. There was unrest. And she lets slip that an elite shared this information with them, and then they told it to her. Someone named Eve. Have you mentioned this to anyone else? I've only seen them and you. Is it bad? It's nothing the Illum would not see an end to. I can't believe that she ratted out them immediately, and then she doesn't feel bad about this at all later when it causes Rose to get her ass kicked, or Violet. One of them gets their ass kicked, and it's because she shared information. Again, we are told that this is a society that has double standards for men versus women. So she's like, my wrist is glowing gold. Yours doesn't. Does yours not glow? It does not. Even among two elites, the male's wrist will not glow. He gives her chocolate, which is this book's idea of flirting. It does the typical book thing where a muscle feathers in his jaw. We had to tick that box because obviously we've already ticked the box of I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and the box of heterochromia. So on to the next. So they're talking about how he wasn't expecting her, she wasn't expecting him, which is weird because I feel like he very specifically requested her. He was given a bunch of good matches, I think, and then he requested her specifically. I think that's what happened. I wasn't expecting you, even though you're exactly what I ordered. I don't know. I guess he meant he wasn't expecting her personality, but they haven't, that also doesn't make sense because they haven't really shown personality from either of them. So I don't know what we're doing here. They then bump into her birth family. Families shared a last name before the war. We don't now. The Procreation Act focused on genetic histories to repopulate the world. Without a family name, it was easier to sever ties with genetically defective offspring. My heart swelled painfully, hollowing out the rest of my insides. My heart swelled, hollowing. If your heart, which is a solid, is swelling, how could you be hollow? Okay. They have kind of like a standoffy conversation with her birth family because her birth father is such a piece of shit to her because he looks down on her for being a lower class member because she has heterochromia. But her birth mother is very nice-ish and says, we want to host you guys at our home this week. This is a blessing that you two are mated and we should be celebrated. An honor? A blessing? We? I couldn't stand the sound of those words. He is annoyed that her birth father is rude to her, and he says to her, you are an extension of me now. They will do well to remember that. They'll regret their unkindness. They all will. And the whole extension of me thing, again, I was still under the assumption that this was written by somebody who was like MAGA, and the extension of me thing definitely sounded like they were not just MAGA, but like fundy, because that is something that we believe in fundy culture, where the woman is an extension of her husband. And since so far Colin is being set up to be a nice guy, but still saying the same stuff that, he's still contributing being just nicer about it to this society where women are subjugated. I don't know. It still sounded like evangelical behavior to me. But again, by the end of this book, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Again, it's possible that this was just written by somebody who doesn't understand that what they're saying sounds like a different thing than what they're actually saying. So then he is trying to convince the elite, including her parents, that she's worthy. And he's like, do you trust me, Emmeline? And then he gives her a big old smooch in front of everybody. Did I trust him? Did I want to? Bitch, you've known him for 2 days. I have no clue. Those sapphire pools found me and I willingly drowned in them. Oh, brother.
Gee.
So he goes to like kiss her and she says, I can't tell you no, which, oh, brother. Again, like it's channeling Fundy for me. Forgive me. His lips collided with mine. So the next day she tells her friend, Lo, he kissed me. Please tell me it's better than those diagrams. During our grooming at the academy, our education, basically their education teaches them about physical actions in a sterile, often intimidating diagrams and lessons detailing the procreation phase. I had always found it unappealing, even frightening. What I had experienced tonight had been frightening, but in a way I'd never felt before. In front of everyone! And yes, it's better than the diagrams. Lo's like, your glowy thing is gold. Why isn't it silver? Usually a minor mate's mind turned silver when their procreation contract went into effect. Most women hid it from their fellow defects. It had a way of turning the others in gray against you. And I thought that this was weird because I'm like, why was this confusing to her then? Because yesterday she's like, what's that glowing? Shouldn't she have been waiting for it to pop up and then when she saw a glow be like, oh, there's my glow, but it's gold. No? Okay. And also, like, shouldn't this be something that they learn in grooming? Even like the gold thing? I don't know. Why should I know these things? I think it's gold because he's an Elam. That's what the starling said. An Elam kissed a minor in front of the elite? Do you understand what this could mean for the minors? Surely this has never happened before. Maybe fewer of us will go to the sanctuary. I don't think it's that simple, I said. What do you mean? I met my two other birth brothers tonight. I saw my birth parents. They're all up there? You're the only one down here? Are you the only defect in your line? Yes, obviously. Aren't y'all friends? What do you talk about? She also let slip to Lo that 6 elite were killed after a rebel attack, like where rebels broke in somewhere and killed 6 elite. Lo's like, oh, I gotta go, curfew, and also I have my yearly tomorrow. Yearly seems to be this thing where they have like a evaluation and then they can get approved for a mating contract or something. Again, she knew that this was gonna happen. She's like, oh, I forgot you were having that. I cannot tell the difference between what these two have and friendship. So if she's not supposed to have friends, again, I'm just very confused. Was it good? She asked before leaving. The kiss? Of course it was. It was the best kiss to ever kiss. Perfect. Her holographic instructor pops up in the morning, you know, her first lesson with the holograph instructor. According to your most recent scans, you are on day 14 of your menstrual cycle. I have adjusted your foods accordingly to provide the best nutrition for your ovulation phase. Man, I wish. Being approved for a procreation contract meant at the end of the supplement, the supplements that discontinued my cycle. So she stops taking supplements that stop her cycle, and now she's going to start her cycle, her period again. All defect women's supplements contain something that stopped our cycles until we were mated. If there's any consequences of this, it's not explained in the text. But it does answer the question of, does anybody get pregnant in the lower class outside of a mating contract? So I guess the answer would be no. And also she's low on vitamin D, according to her holographic instructor who read her mind chip. She's like, if I'm low on vitamin D, why was I kept underground all day? Wouldn't that ensure that the defects stayed, well, defective? I'm like, oh, wow, we're going to ask a basic question again and then not interrogate it? That's bonkers. My education had been solely conducted by holograms. No one dared waste a human breath on the defects education, except when Nestor, the academy headmaster, and an Illum, don't forget that, I had forgotten that, spoke to us. I didn't know if you could call him human. Now, having finished the book, I think that might have been a hint, because I think that the majority of the Illum are not human anymore. Even now, my work was hologram-based. I had never actually seen any of the art I cataloged. I know. And trust me, I'm still wondering how any of this makes sense. She is given some food that is not the normal food that she's used to, the crappy food. Things like grains. She's never heard of grains before. Dragon fruit. That makes sense. What about the injustice of it, that those in the sky had access to such things while the rest of us didn't? Why were they permitted luxuries while the rest of us were denied basic human needs? And then she just doesn't think about this again. All these basic questions, and she's just like, why is that? Anyways, what's that over there? Whoa, bitch, get it together. I wore gray. I was a defect, contract or not. Today my food looked appetizing. I should be thankful. This would have been a good time to insert religion, actually, because religion creates compliance. But instead, religion is banned. So then at her job, again, of deleting art via hologram, Hal is there again. Morning, Moonlight. She asks, why are you calling me Moonlight? Well, since I met you, I find myself watching the moon while I work. What does watching the moon have to do with me? The moon rules our time, does it not? Since meeting you, you seem to rule mine. Why? I asked. Bitch, stop asking why. Stop it. Pick a new question. He says some vague things that make her question more about the major defects that he's a part of, because she's talking about art and he seems to know more about it than she does. The major defects know about things like this? Someone has to take out their trash. There were so many things that I didn't know about the Elum, the elite, and now the major defects. No shit, that's bonkers. What if I want to understand? You'd have to come to the underworld to find out, Moonlight. Underworld? Lowtown is just for looks. We don't live there. Where do you live? Beneath. His gaze collided with mine. We live in the tunnels beneath the surface. How do you get here? I could show you, you just have to ask. So then they get in an argument because he says that the upper class destroys everything beautiful and different, including her mate. You don't know him. You're a vessel, an obligation. I am not merely a vessel, he's different. Yeah, you've met him twice. You know him for sure. Have you bothered asking what he does up in his clouds? What about when they send him to the surface? That's right, you can't. That'd require you to have rights. So heavy-handed. But I was the one who said you rule my time. You made no such claims. I'll see you around. She gets a message from Colin, her mate, that says, hey, we're supposed to have dinner with your birth parents tonight. Sooner we get out of the way, the better. Doesn't ask her how she feels about it. Lovely. She goes up to get ready with her, prep team again, Rose and Violet. Where's Violet? That's none of your concern, Rose bit out. Rose, what's happened? Do not act as if you care, Rose seethed venomously. Where is Violet, Rose? She is unwell. We don't get unwell. Our mind had eradicated all illness and disease generations ago. Okay. I have a lot of questions. I feel like that lends itself to a lot of questions. We don't have time. Dress is delivered for her. One isn't made for her this time. And it's deep blue silk, major defect blue. She's panicking. She's like, why would somebody send me this dress? Did Colin send me this dress? Whoever sent you this dress is praying you fail. I have to say I might be on their side. Something horrible had happened to Violet and Rose. What had I done? Think for 2 seconds. You told an Elum that Rose and Violet were talking about some girl named Eve and the revolution. Maybe, just maybe, you got Violet in trouble. But of course, Susie Q over here can never do anything wrong. So as soon as Violet eventually comes back, Violet's like, it's fine that you got me in trouble and I got my ass handed to me. She has to wear this blue dress so she looks like a major defect. She shows up to her family's house. She gets a message from Colin saying, hey, sorry, I can't make it after all. So when she gets to her birth family's house, her 2 brothers, Gregory and Philip, are there. Well, Gregory's there. Dude, tell me, is this color in rebellion to your mating, or are you just partial to the color of trash? Which is weird because later, Gregory says that it's just a color. And in this very scene, Gregory flip-flops. It's like we decided midway through the chapter, actually, no, we're gonna make Gregory kind of sarcastic, but not a bad guy after all. I didn't believe them when they told me the girl in the sheer white dress was my birth sister, that I had a sister. Gregory, Vincent, her birth father, thundered, do not entertain her. How much longer are we to wait for Colin? My mate had something come up, he can't join us. So then Gregory decides to go get her some alcohol, which she's never had before, and he's like, here, drink this quick, me, you're gonna need it. It's a wonderful thing called alcohol. It befuddles the mind. Then her other brother, what's his name? Philip, who works for Colin, shows up. Baby brother, how splendid of you to join us. Do tell us how things fare at the Capitol. Have you kissed enough asses to be an Elum yet? Sold your soul? Is that how it works? Genuine question. Philip, our little pride and joy, trying to be just like his dear friend Colin, rejected mating contracts, leaving all mothers distraught, all to sell himself to the Elum like a pet. Philip's like, why are you wearing blue? We need to make sure that the press doesn't get wind of this. The press, capital P. My mind raced by their evident familiarity with each other. The intimacy, mother, brother, sister, these were familial terms. Everything in the defects education used things like birth father, birth mother, and birth sibling. So Helen, her mom, shows up and she's like, why is she in blue? Did we insult the Elam? Is Colin angry with this match? What do you mean is Colin? He chose it. He's an Elam. A guy named Richard is there? Who the fuck is Richard? Richard. Robert. Oh, she doesn't have 2 brothers. She has 3. It's just Richard only comes up this one time. Does he come up again? I don't remember. Oh my gosh, I completely fucking forgot that Richard was... Anyway, Richard is mated to some lady named Poppy who's having a baby again. And of course, her birth father's like, a male? Because this is a male-centric society, except it's run by a woman. 4 offspring, what fertile blessings. Oh yes, how smashing, Gregory added. Have you not tired of her though? Poppy and I have had great success together. She is of strong genes. We have 3 elite offspring, so no, I have not. Let us hope your 4th is of better stock than that. Her birth father shoved a finger at her. I should have switched mates after 3. My birth mother took a long drink as silence fell. And then Gregory's like, so I've been paired up with a defect for mating. I suppose I have Philip to thank for that. Thanks a lot, younger brother. And then they all get into an argument because their dad is such a piece of shit. Vincent's like, there was a petition to fully eliminate every defect, both minor and major, the Elimination Act. They have no use for our goal of repopulating this world. We would be better off without them. They are leeches. Richard's like, who would clean our cities and dispose of our waste if they were eliminated? They do have their purposes, though. Among the trash, Vincent says. Oh, so you've given this no thought at all. You were like, yeah, eliminate them. And then somebody was like, yeah, but the garbage bags. Oh yeah, don't eliminate them. Have them do the garbage. Are you joking? And Philip's like, listen, without their genes, our procreation pool would bottleneck and that would result in inbreeding. And again, I'm like, how does the dad not know this? But then again, I have MAGA parents who I have to explain basic concepts to, and suddenly this is sounding very familiar. They are people, living, breathing people. It's not just elimination, it's murder, Emmeline says. Would you have me eliminated? Easier to eliminate a mistake than admit you carry any responsibility for it. It's your genes that created this. Her eyes. I knew I'd like you, Gregory says. Then she's upset because her mom doesn't stick up for her and she feels like her mom never stuck up for her. They are defective to their core, uncivilized, Vincent said. Who made us uncivilized? And you wanted to save her, Helen. I was wrong, Vincent, Helen says. She had wanted to save me. She then decides to get the fuck out of there and is about to take a pod home, except she doesn't. She gets in a pod and then she slams a button, makes the pod drop. She like runs and then suddenly Hal is there. He gets her back to her living quarters and gets her out of this dress that had like the blue dress that had like a collar on it. And he's like, all right, now that that's done, I need to go. And she's like, you can't leave. Time's like the time, curfew. The entrance won't let anyone in or out unless their mind chip is authorized, which of course yours is not going to be. I can't stay here. You're in a contract, which is a weird thing to say because that's not really the important thing. The important thing is he had work. Like he said he was on his way to work and he's like, I can't stay in your room. You're in a contract. Who's gonna, like, what an odd thing to write. What an odd thing to say. Who's gonna see them? Probably nobody. Who cares if she's in a contract? You guys are gonna sit around for hours. The important thing is you are going to miss work in a society where you guys are constantly watched and forced to do ridiculous jobs. Isn't that going to be a problem? You have to stay, Hal. If you set off the door, I could be eliminated. So I'm stuck here with you all night in cold, wet clothes. I'll sleep on the floor. Wait, what about your mind chip? I hadn't thought about the chip once. Did Colin already know Hal was here? It's taken care of. So he's wearing something that scrambles the mind chip, but then also he doesn't have a mind chip because he cut it out. And later she thinks about, why was he wearing a thing to scramble the mind chip if he doesn't even have one? And I don't think we ever got an answer. Besides, the Elam don't watch us the way they watch you, which honestly doesn't make any sense. Someone had dressed me in major defect blue and left me in my family's clutches. The only explanation was that it had been Colin. Actually, it isn't the only explanation. It's just the only one that you can come up with because you don't know anybody! And now she feels like Colin set her up and that him kissing her had felt like it meant something, but it was all a lie. And now here's Hal. Hal perched on the edge of my bed, clad in nothing but a pair of boxers and his cuff. She falls asleep, she wakes up, she's staring at him. He wakes up, he's looking at her, so you really do like looking at me. I've never seen a male body. Not in real life, only in art. That's not true because you watched those movies that explained sex to you, remember? He tells her about his life. My parents were both major defects. They fell in love. Is it common for majors to have offspring? The Elam do not want major defect offspring to exist, so the majors do not speak about them, which is why my parents hid in the tunnels beneath our city for 7 years. I had a family. Most don't. The act your father talked about, it was being discussed. The majors got scared. My dad was a brave man. A couple of other majors went to the surface to get information on a way out. They were caught. The elite force broke in one night while we were sleeping. They got to my mom. I was too young to fight them off. They told me if I went with them, my parents would be forgiven for their crimes, that I was the cost of their decisions. So I went. They implanted me with a chip, gave me an ID number. I was told I was going to the minor academy when an Elam named Charles informed the men in white coats that 2 major defects had produced an elite offspring. Somehow he was labeled an elite and sent to the elite academy. The Elam didn't like it. I wasn't meant to exist in the first place. I definitely wasn't meant to be elite, but according to their chip, my genes were perfect. I don't understand any of this. And his parents were actually murdered the night that the elite force took him away. They're about to kiss, her and Hal, who they've met all of, 3 times now, when suddenly somebody's banging at her door and it's her brother, Gregory, the sarcastic one. I was tasked with fetching duties. Get dressed and be quick about it. I'll be in the pod. I can't stay in this hovel. Oh, and bring the gown. I didn't have a way to hide my defect. Colin hadn't seen me without a lens. I shouldn't be worried about the implications of Colin seeing me as I truly was. True. The Elam would know about last night, about the way I stormed out. What were the ramifications of that? Did I care if the Elam had put me in blue? If Colin had put me in blue? I grabbed my comm device, pulling up the first of 5 messages. Should be able to make it for dessert. Apologies for being held up. It's a text from Colin. And then another one. Philip messaged me and told me you left Emmeline. What happened? And then there were 2 texts from Lo. You gonna be back in time to talk? Guess not. Can't wait to hear about it tomorrow. You're not supposed to have friends, and you guys are texting on assumedly a monitored thing being friendly. Okay, not a red flag? All right, in the pod, Gregory's like, don't hit the emergency button. How did you know about that? Lesson number 1, little sister. They are always watching you. You're unlike any of us now, even the elite. It's why Father's so livid. You're an Elam's mate, not just any Elam. The others stay locked away, ruling and judging from afar. That's not actually true because the one that runs the school is pretty accessible, isn't he? How many others are there? Can I get a guess? Or you are the mate of the Elam they send into the elite to carry out their judgments and punishments. He's their enforcer. There is no one like you, little sister, because there is no one like your mate. I don't understand. No, you? Oh, I'm shocked. I wouldn't plan on that changing. So I'm not going to be eliminated for my outburst yesterday? No, quite the opposite. You're property of the Elam and somebody has to pay for the mistreatment of you. So he takes her to Colin's house, where she meets Nora, Colin's sister, who he has not mentioned. And she's like, he hasn't mentioned me? But if you'll recall, they've only had 2 conversations. So yeah. All right, where were we? She meets Nina, which is Colin's sister. And it's funny because, not Nina, Nora. She meets Nora, Colin's sister, and Nora is like, brother, why didn't you tell your betrothed about me? And I'm over here like, they've only had 2 conversations. When did he have the time? So this conversation is between Emmeline, our main character, Nora, her fiance, her mate's sister, her mate Colin, and at least one of her brothers, if not 2 of them, Emmeline's brothers. Colin says, I heard that Vincent, her birth father, mentioned the Elimination Act, which was the idea to just kill people. He more than mentioned it, Emmeline says. Some of the older elites still believe in it, Colin says. Do you? I do not. Oh my God, the bare minimum. Perfect. She also asks, what is the press, capital P? A media source for the elite. It's a gossip column at best, Nora says. Colin asks, where's the dress? Confirms that he was not the one who sent her the blue dress to, have her wear as an embarrassing moment for her. Her brother Gregory is there, and it takes the time to mention that Gregory was older than everyone else in the room, yet he stood on the outskirts removed. Emmeline's like, I really thought that you were the one that sent the dress. I thought that this was like a cruel trial that you were going to put me through. Colin's like, I've only sent you things that I thought you would want and enjoy, like the flowers and the chocolate. She's like, well, I just thought it's because I'm a defect, a visual defect. She has heterochromia. My own elite birth family wants to eliminate me. I quit caring about the elite's opinions long ago. Emmeline, you are an extension of me now. And it keeps bringing this up and it's weird. And you know, I like looked at the reviews of this again last night and people were like saying that they were Team Colin. And I'm gonna be honest, after reading the reviews of this and after reading it and not being able to tell whether or not this was written by somebody who is conservative or not, and I do think that that's a problem, and I don't care if you think that that's divisive. I grew up in Christian nationalism, so I know the amount of subterfuge that they are doing in order to recreate this country as a Christian nation to the absolute detriment of an awful lot of groups of people who are not white men. And so yes, it is a problem for me if somebody is aligning with certain ideals that I know lead to harmful places because I was taught that that was a good thing. I do want books to differentiate themselves. I do want to be able to tell the difference. And if you are doing rhetoric that is like indistinguishable from right-wing rhetoric that I grew up with, I am going to take it as a bad sign. So for Colin to say, you are an extension of me, is as an ex-fundamentalist, that's a red flag to me. And the fact that people are reading this guy and saying Team Colin is confusing for me because I'm not sure if people are like, how did we get here where you're Team Colin? This is a man who is saying that she is an extension of him. That's not a good thing. That's not a hot thing. That's not a romantic thing. You are your own person. You are not an extension of somebody else. You are not the case to his phone. You are your own phone. I don't know. It's just the first thing that came up. It was right next to me. So I'm really confused about why people are saying, Team Colin, for what? I'm team, this girl get a personality and a life of her own before she decides to commit to a man. I really think that there is I'm not even sure if it's on purpose on behalf of the authors or not, but I think that there is a major problem with books doing right-wing and sometimes Christian nationalist rhetoric. The fact that we aren't picking up on this and saying, hey, what are we doing here, is concerning to me. I don't think we should be passing those things off as a good thing at any point, because you know who benefits when we do, when we pass them off as a good thing and we accept them and then they bleed into real life, is Christian nationalists. That's the point. That's the point of all those Trojan horses that they do. And I know because I took part in it for a really long time. Anyway, we can talk about that in a different video, and we will. I'm planning on that for January. And I think I'm gonna have to bring this book up as an example. Anyway, so the point is, he says, if somebody hurts you, I take it personally. Power churned in Colin's eyes as his jaw bulged. Power churned in his eyes is, I don't know what that means, but I don't know what you mean his jaw bulged. Is he swollen? So her other brother, Philip, she is told, is running interference to ensure the events of last night do not get out to the elite collective. Her running away from her family home in a blue dress apparently would be super embarrassing. Thus ensuring that the attendants at your parents do not share what they witnessed. I also overrode the curfew by an hour, granting Gregory's mind chip and yours access to move freely. I am calling it a trial so the rest of the Elam are not offended by my overstepping. I don't know how he possibly thought that he could get away with this. I don't know what his dynamic is with the other Elam. I don't even know who all the other Elam are. You are the first Elam mate in a very long time. We have had several generations of Elam who have focused on societal advances and innovation rather than procreation. Again, I don't have much information about the Elam. I wish I did. Being an extension of me, you will be watched more closely, Emmeline. Aren't they always watching? The Elam cannot watch every mind all the time. There are too many. They watch for outliers and minds that do not follow their rules, anomalies. And I'm like, okay, I feel like you have an awful lot of people working for you, yeah? So logically, if I were the Elam, wouldn't I say something like, all right, I have a lot of people who want to work up to a higher station, so you could afford to give people access to monitoring other people's mind chips all the time, do it in shifts, you know, surveillance type shit, if you offered them certain incentives. And I don't I don't know. I just, like, if I were Emmeline, I would have already thought that. I would have said, that doesn't really make sense. There's tons of people that could do the work to monitor. Why would it just need to be the Elum? They don't run every single little thing. They have a lot of elites that are in charge of a lot of things. For instance, Colin's a second is Philip, an elite that is Emmeline's brother. So elites are involved. Like, you could even say that if you want to ascend to the level of Illum, however you do that, then you would need to work in surveillance and survey all of the people all of the time. Like, I don't really understand how it's possible that the Illum feel that they don't have the ability to survey people all the time. That's just not true. You do. You have the resources, you have the manpower, so why aren't you doing it? That would be my question if I were Emmeline, but she's stupid, so I guess I am asking too much. So they tell her, if you behave like that in front of other elites, even though Vincent upset you, it'll create issues. If the Elum start to take notice, I can only do so much. Then they start talking about the relationship between all of them. So Philip, her brother, who she has 3 brothers. Richard, we established, comes on page basically never. Philip and Gregory are the main ones. Philip and Nora are very close, but in like a sibling type way. But Gregory, we're going to find out later, Gregory and Nora are having a long-term affair, and the Elum just won't let them be together. And so obviously this is frustrating for Emmeline, who got left out of all of this simply because she has heterochromia. All these people were getting close, and she got left out because of one blue eye, or one brown eye, whichever one was the problem eye. Nora, Colin's sister, is currently mated to a guy named William. I wonder what he meant by current mate. Did women switch mates? Now, this is going to be important later. This is going to be important because it's going to point out that there is a flaw in the writing of this. And further, I still don't understand how and when, like, we decide to subjugate women based on, like, and when we don't. Like, I don't understand the double standards here. Again, the woman in charge, the head Elum, is a woman. And they're all living in this house together, by the way. Philip is living there, Nora is living there, Colin is living there. Elite women are housed by their relatives between mates. So she's about to be mated to a guy named William, and then she's going to move out of her brother's house. So again, because she's a woman, she stays with a relative unless she has a mate. Women do not live on their own. Nora asked, because there was another break-in at a medical building containing the supplements that they force people to take. Nora asks, was the Reaper involved? And this is, the guy who is like in charge sort of the rebellion, or at least that's what it's being hinted at. He has a reputation now, and they're not sure if this is an elite member trying to send the Elum a message or defects attempting a rebellion. Regardless, sooner or later, the Reaper will mess up and expose himself. Now, it's at this point where I'm like, all right, obviously the Reaper is going to be maybe 3 different people that have come on page. It could be Gregory, who is like the least likely of the 3, right? It could be Gregory, her brother, who voices some contempt for the elite. It could be Hal, obviously, the guy who is already a defect and already seemingly doing rebellion stuff, or it could be Colin himself. None of these are particularly interesting answers, minus maybe Gregory. Gregory is the only character in this book that I liked. It's for Gregory alone that I gave this a 1.5 instead of a 1. But she's already starting to think, Hal could possibly be the Reaper because, he's doing stuff like visiting her in the archives that he's not supposed to be doing. Then she sees that the press, capital P, has posted a photo of herself and Colin, them kissing in that moment where he said, "Forgive me," and then he kissed her. My first kiss displayed for the elite to see. Now, it's at this point where I'm like, all right, if this gets passed off as fine by the narrative, that's going to be a point in this is like more leaning towards the right, where anything that happens with her is justified because paternalism. Anything he does with her body, and does not give her agency is fine because paternalism. So let's see what the narrative does with it. Why did they post this today when this happened the other night? There's power in revealing information at the precise moment it best suits the teller, when there is the most to gain. The press is quite good at it. Young Elum shocks elite with minor mate. Do minors have a place in our clouds? The press title says. Nora, who controls the press? Emmeline asks. The Elum. So Colin planted that story in order to distract from the story of her running away from her family's home in a blue dress. She gets back to her apartment and she talks to Hal again. Wait, no, back to her her work center. I don't know, back to where she is in, minor defect land. She asks him, how'd you get out when Gregory came to get me? He says, I used the chutes. All the buildings on the surface have chutes that lead to the underworld so majors can take care of the trash, and sometimes we use them for other purposes. He also knows how to maneuver around outside of the capture window of the surveillance. She's like, how do you know so much about all this? And he says, who do you think provides maintenance for their cameras? Hal, do you know the Reaper? Did they discuss him with you? She basically doesn't answer. They also talk about how Colin had kissed her, and there's a photo of it in the press, and his immediate response is, did you want the kiss? There are rules I have to follow, Hal. And then she recalls being back at school where she is part of something called the grooming of the minors. I feel like if we thought about this for 4 seconds, maybe we could have come up with a different name. Welcome to the grooming. For the remainder of your time at the academy, we will be instructing you on how to rise and serve the greater good, capital G's. With our revolutionary advancements combined with the individual information gathered from yearly testing, you can overcome your defect. It is the Elam's deepest belief that every life has a role in the greater good. Choosing oneself over society as a whole is destructive. They are told that they need to produce elite offspring. If they produce a minor or major offspring, then their procreation, their ability to get a procreation contract will be revoked. You will be condemned to blue. So even if they are a minor defect, if they produce a minor or major defect offspring, then they get sent down in the caste system to blue. And she thinks about how Alice, her friend back at school, who she wasn't supposed to be friends with and disappeared, said, was like so upset about this. All of a sudden, we're given to an elite male like some object and have to pass our test and put on a show for the elite just to carry an offspring. And for what? We'll feed their elite population or become their damn servants? It doesn't make any sense. They act like these saviors, telling us to blindly follow them and making us hate ourselves. Alice, you have to stop. You can't talk like this. I won't do it, Alice declared. I won't carry an offspring. It's too much. I'd rather be in blue than be their vessel. This poor man getting brought back into this over and over. That was one of the last conversations that her and Alice had before she had disappeared, assumedly. In real time, Hal is talking about how you shouldn't be anyone's plaything and he should have asked you. Asked me what? If you wanted to be kissed. They then hear a long whistle and he says, I have to go. She says, what is that whistle about? A signal from one supporter to another. It means elites are present. You're a supporter? And why a whistle? Their cameras don't recognize a person whistling. They register out of place movement. What? They don't. How do these cameras work exactly? I'm confused. So then she leaves her office and she's not wearing gray. And I think she's walking with her friend Lo at this point, and a man in gray is staring at her, not wearing gray because she just came back from Colin's where she was, put in a different outfit. And his eyes flew from my wrist before his eyes flew from my wrist. That sentence isn't complete. It sounds like his eyes were on her wrist and he flew. His eyes flew from my wrist before piercing me with a glare. Oh, and then he looked at her. Okay, it's still a weird sentence. His eyes flew from my wrist before piercing me with a glare. Okay, I feel like we could have written that better. He whistled as if warning someone about my approach. So this guy's whistling now because she looks like an elite. So now he's just outed himself as a supporter, which is gonna end up bad for him. This whole thing was like really messy and weird. Anyway, Lo tells her that she had her yearly, which I think means yearly physical, and Lo was approved for procreation. So now she can get a mate and a contract. They bring their food to her house, her apartment, and Lo says, so where should we eat? There were no tables or chairs. I'd always assumed our rooms were bare due to shortages. Having seen the elite's living quarters, I knew it was to deter us from forming connections. They don't give you tables or chairs so that you don't eat with anybody and form friends? What? Are you serious? What a stupid explanation. And of course, it's somehow not a red flag to her that Lo is being friendly with her, even though she was told you're not supposed to have friends, and she knows you're not, and she said I would never have a friend again. She's being friendly with Lo, who she calls her friend. Start from the beginning, Lo says. I need to know everything. She talks about how Nora, Colin's sister, said that Philip, Emmeline's brother, is like a brother to her, which hurts Emmeline's feelings. And Lo talks about her experiences, saying, my birth mother ended up in the sanctuary due to my defects. Her last words for me were that she hoped I was mated and my offspring was exactly like me, so I would know the shame. How many women in this building had the same story, Emmeline thinks. Maybe we could find comfort in one another if they didn't pit us against one another from the beginning. If we were taught to be one another's allies instead of competition, how different would these halls be if we cared for one another? On the day when she's supposed to go to this big dinner with the elite and I think the Elam too, maybe? The morning of, she wakes up and Hal is in her room again, of course. He was limping. Oh wait, no, it's not in her room. That's because there's no chairs in her room, we just established. He's sitting in the chair at her office. And the task of the day is to check out The Starry Night by Vincent van Gogh. And we get some heavy-handed discussion about Vincent van Gogh, I tell you what. I was shocked that it was the same artist who had painted At Eternity's Gate. A person who painted with such pain also painted such beauty. I want to ask the artist which came first. And of course, this is supposed to be like a bonding conversation between her and Hal. This is just so cheesy and shallow. She gets a message from Colin saying, your work schedule has been updated. I look forward to seeing you tonight. I personally picked your gown. And she's told that she doesn't have to work the next 2 days. So things are progressing, even with the press article, Hal says. Don't do that. Don't walk out over something I have no say in. It would be easier if I left, Hal said. One day, you'll have the nerve to ask, and I don't think I'll say no. He's talking about kissing her, as if it's like a big... You guys have known each other for like a week. Like, stop this. I was looking for... It wasn't supposed to happen like this. What were you looking for? Not this. Do you think I was looking for this? I was happy down here with my life. No, you weren't. You were lonely. No, you weren't just lonely. You had your only friend stolen from you and assumedly killed. Like, I don't know how you were happy with your life, but all right. You should have left me alone because I wear gray and you wear blue. Are we children? You wear gray, he seethed. It doesn't make you above me. It makes you a mindless vessel. I promise this book will apologize to you by the time we're done. You just waltzed right into it claiming he's different even as he uses you. She picks up on the fact that he's saying people's names that she did not give him. And he says, I told you I was deemed elite. And she didn't ask any questions about this when he initially said it, which is, it's so typical of this book. They killed my parents and sent me to the academy. I'm the same age as you, your dear mate, his twin, and your brother. They were thick as thieves, even after what they did to Nora. The moment I left the academy, I cut out that fucking chip. It was jarring when this book swore because I forgot that this wasn't like a Christian dystopian book a couple of times. Most people die when doing it, but I lived, faked my death and disappeared. She has no questions about this whatsoever. I wore color and I gave it up. He used to wear color. You can cut them out, she says. Who are you really? I'm whoever I choose to be. And she's thinking maybe he's the Reaper. If Hal was the Reaper, then the greatest danger to him was myself, the mate of an Elam. Go! Everyone does, especially elite. I am not like them, Hal says. Tell me, Hal, how are you different? I've only known you a week anyway. Might as well say goodbye now. No, now we're speaking sense. I actually agree with that sentence. Whether I do it now or in 3 moons, you were always gonna be a goodbye. Oh, brother. She does ask a logical question, which I appreciate. She thinks, wait, that one night, he was wearing the microchip scrambling cuff. Why had he needed that if he doesn't have a microchip anymore? The question I never asked hung heavy all around me. Girl, if the questions are starting to hang heavy, then you will be crushed, I fear. The question I would dare not ask was Hal the Reaper? Oh, brother. Oh, Emmeline, your stupidity might kill all of us, including me. I might die of secondhand stupidity. She says that this past week carries more than a decade. No, it doesn't. No, it does not. It does not carry more than a decade. I wish we would have had a decade. Then we would have more sense and logic to this book. But it doesn't actually make sense that you are falling for these 2 dudes after a week. Actually, that doesn't make any sense. On top of all the other shit that doesn't make any sense, that's like top of the list. There was no scenario in which Hal and I could be together. You were always going to be a goodbye. I wondered what I would do if I had a choice, who I would be. She goes back to her starlings, the people who are supposed to get her ready, Violet and Rose, and Violet is finally back, and she looks like she's been beaten the shit out of. Who did this? The Elum. Had he enforced this? Who exactly was my mate? Girl, you don't know, and neither do I. It's been a week. You've had like 3 conversations. I'm losing it. She has a right to know, Violet says. Not at the expense of you, Rose says. It could have come from another source, someone close to the Elum, Violet says. We already answered their questions about the dress, Rose says. We had no part in it. You might not have meant to, but you got Violet hurt. Someone got me hurt, Violet says. What I'm about to share doesn't leave this room. A rebellion is coming. People are rising up. Does your mate often confide Elum information to you? And she says, no. Obviously not, because, you know, they've only seen each other 3 times total, so I don't know why the fuck that would possibly even be a thing that would be happening. Emmeline asks, hey, so why isn't Tabitha, the lady who's run the Elum for more than 50 years, ever in the press? We don't talk about her. We can't keep her in the dark, Violet says. The time of hiding is coming to an end. There's no going back. We will all have to pick our sides. We need information, and you can get it. Information to help the Reaper. So they just, even though she probably got Violet's ass kicked by giving information to Colin, these 2 people are still somehow trusting Emmeline to continue to feed them information. And again, they've only met each other 3 times as well. This is ridiculous. So they go to this dinner with all these elite, including Colin and Nora and her current mate, William. William is a dick. Colin doesn't like him. They argue at the table. Nora makes a shitty comment about minor defects, and Colin has to remind his sister, hey, my mate is a minor defect. Nora apologizes. Emmeline just feels bad for her. If I were mated to someone like William, I would be angry at Philip's freedom as well. I wonder how bad Nora's first mate had been for her to choose to take on another. And at this point again, now I'm confused, because earlier we said, can women choose new mates? And she's not thinking about this. She's not asking about this. How could she have chosen, as a woman who is subjugated, who isn't even allowed to live alone or choose her mates, or choose her like original mate? How could she have possibly chosen to leave the other mate? How? And why aren't we asking basic questions? Turns out that Gregory, Emmeline's oldest brother, the sarcastic one, was friends with Nora's first mate. And Nora's first mate was Edward, the shitty guy who at the first date between Colin and Emmeline looked her over and she's like, that man's skeevy. I can tell by the way he's looking at me. I felt terrible for Nora. Edward and William both seemed like horrible mates. This book says mates so many times. I swear to God, if I ever read another book that says mate in it, I'm gonna claw my eyeballs out. She leaves the dinner room to do, I don't even fucking remember what, but she sees that, she hears down a long shiny teal tunnel a male voice that she knows, and it's Gregory. Please don't even say it, Gregory says. But what's bonkers is that Gregory is supposed to be at dinner with Lo, Emmeline's best friend. He's not supposed to be in some tunnel with some other girl. This was their initial meeting. All Lo wanted was a procreation contract, and Gregory was in here with another woman. I will wait, Gregory growled. Oh, that wasn't a growl. No, I'm not gonna growl. That's ridiculous. We don't need to always have men growling. Stop. I will never stop waiting for you. And she doesn't see who he's talking to, but when he leaves, he's like, are you lost, little sister? Your mate. I know her. She isn't my mate yet. I'm here because they told me to. I didn't choose this. I didn't choose her. Lo is a good person. Well, that's the problem. I'm not. She decides to start a fight between her and Colin. The press, is that why you kissed me, for them to publish it as a distraction for the elite? Colin looked towards my lips. What? Is that what you wanted it to be? I want to know what it was to you. Selfishness, he says. He's like, you have other questions. You want to ask me about the starlings, don't you? The Elam do not take lightly to anyone who spreads discord among the masses. I told you, they will stop at nothing to silence it. And she says, you question them. You're the enforcer. I am. But he shakes his head and he says, it doesn't matter if I did or didn't. You already believe that I did. So she's not sure, and genuinely neither am I, if he questioned Violet and beat the shit out of her or somebody else did. But either way, it doesn't really matter because he's still upholding this government. He's still part of the Elum. And just because he didn't do it to Violet doesn't mean he won't do it to somebody else. So she goes back home, and for some reason she ends up near the sanctuary where all these like pregnant women and mothers are raising their offspring, except eventually they get their kids taken from them. Several soldiers restrained the birth mothers as their offspring sobbed. I couldn't breathe as the women dropped to their knees, their screams ripping at my soul as they reached for their offspring, None of them could have been older than 4. They were being taken away to the academy. When she talks to the Starlings again, Violet and Rose, about this, she says that's called the parting. We were both in contracts before this. Rose successfully carried an offspring. What you saw, we call the parting. It wasn't like that for me, Emmeline says. The parting is only for mothers in the sanctuary. It happens unannounced. Always when other minors are away for their work days, there is no time for goodbyes. Do the offspring ever see their mothers again? No, they do not. So I don't really understand how this works. I don't really know. Wouldn't other minors be talking about this with each other? Like, I'm just not really sure how she didn't know. And the Elam, they stand for this treatment? And like, of course they do. I don't know how this is even a question when, again, they took away her only friend and she never saw her again. So she decides, I do want to help the rebellion then, because she saw children being dragged away from their mothers. And even though this like literally happened to her, it's just that her mother didn't want to keep her, or it seemed that way. I don't know. So she tells Violet and Rose that she will help them. Tonight, be paying attention, be his mate and pay attention, gain his trust, and we will talk when we see you next. She goes and talks to Nora, Colin's sister, and Nora explains, I've been in contracts my whole life. Before that, I was being prepared for that one. I am usually with my mate or offspring while I get to be. Do you see your offspring often? On visiting day, I see them all. Them? You have more than one? I have 3, Nora says. And Emmeline's like, this doesn't really make sense because Nora is 32 and they have offspring every 5 years or 65 moons after a short courting phase into procreation into maternity. The math didn't add up. Did you produce twins? If Nora had 3 offspring, she had been mated at 17. Disgust leveled me before she had even left the academy, which is weird because it says at the beginning, I've been in contracts all my adult life. Before that, I was being prepared for one, except no, you were in one at 17. Unless they consider adults to be 17 and up, which they can't be because Emmeline just said she'd been mated at 17, disgust leveled me. I don't know. She talks to Colin and Colin's talking about the Reaper. The Reaper has been too bold. He's killed elite, highlighted flaws in the system. The Elam does not tolerate chaos. They are adamant about sending him a message. And that message is going to be, they're going to kill some of the majors. What are you going to do to the majors? Whatever is required of me. Everything I do is for the greater good. Majors are people. And so he takes her to this event where elites are, and she says, why am I here? What is this dinner about? The man who whistled at you? Did you tell anyone? What are you talking about? Very little happens in this city that the Elam are not aware of. You said earlier that they can't survey people all the time, so I don't understand. I'd ask you to trust me, but given our brief conversation at the pod, that would be a waste of time. So they go to this dinner that she's required to go to, and Edward, Nora's first mate, and the guy who was like skeevy at the first meeting between Colin and Emmeline, says, on behalf of all the elite here, I wanted to raise a glass to the Elam and his peculiar mating. We know you have your reasons. And when he gets flack for this, he says, surely you understand a member of the Elam stooping to a minor contract. Was it stooping when you ogled my mate so thoroughly in the garden? And all she can think is how gross it is that he was mated to Nora. How old was he when they had been mated? He had been Gregory's best friend, so at least 5 years. So that means that he was like 22, sleeping with a 17-year-old for the purpose of having a baby. You insult her, you insult the Elam. I do not forgive, nor do I forget the mistreatment of my things. Ugh! Unless it is elimination you are after. My head whipped toward Colin at his nonchalant suggestion. It was murder he was talking about. Gregory, for some reason, is forced to wear a blue suit, and he does not care. Allegedly, you really wasted a great color on the trash of our society. I think it brings out the blue in my eyes. So Tabitha is there, who is the leader of the Elam, except she's not there. She's like holographically projected in. She didn't even stand in the room with us, and yet everyone stood at perfect attention. We were able to apprehend a sympathizer in the Reaper's desire to destroy our peace and upend our prosperity and sacred way of life. His only goal is to spread discord among those with defects. In is brought the man who whistled at her earlier. Upon our investigation, he was found guilty of passing information from the capital to the Reaper. And she's standing here like, is this a guy about to be killed? Because Colin told me he doesn't believe in eliminating defects. The guy whistles again. He says, the Reaper is coming for all of you. No one touches him, and yet he's dying because his mind chip, just like everybody else's mind chip, which she's just finding out now, has a lethal dose of hemotoxin. It affects our blood, so the Illum can eliminate, and she's like, no, it's murder. Colin says, forgive me. He was actively working against the Illum, so he should die? It's hard to understand. You told me you didn't believe in killing minors. That was before. Philip, summon a pod. Philip is her brother, don't forget. And get the force ready for briefing. Gregory, make sure she gets home. We can't afford any more mistakes. I'm going with her, Nora says. Colin looks at his sister and says, think of your offspring. You will not use my offspring against me. You will not involve them. You will never involve them. No, I won't, but we both know they will. Arabella is almost of age. They will use her to get to you. So in the pod, her and her brother, Gregory, she says to him, listen, I didn't have anything to do with you having to wear blue. I'm sorry. Don't be, little sister. It didn't faze me. It's just a color. It held no power until they told you it did. They told me to wear it, so I did. Which is weird because I feel like he said something shitty about the color blue earlier in the book when she was wearing it. I don't know. Never care about anyone. The less you care about, the less you have to lose. And she turns to this man and says, do you love her? And they're talking about Nora. She's figured it out. There is not a word I know for what I feel for her. She is everything, everywhere, the stars, the earth, the very air. She is everything. There is nothing I wouldn't do for her. And you know what? I don't hate Gregory. 0.5 to this book just for Gregory. Gregory doesn't suck. This book should have been about Gregory and Nora. Would have been more interesting. Then there's like a message from, I think the Elam, I think maybe Tabitha herself. I am here to address all the rumors that have reached us. There have been concerns regarding a man who has been named the Reaper. As of yesterday, we were able to apprehend a sympathizer. We obtained vital information before terminating the traitor. We will continue to root out this diseased way of thinking that threatens to destroy our peace and upend our prosperity and sacred way of life, to spread discord among those with defects. We can assure you the defect community is now under close surveillance, and new restrictions and measures will be put in place to maintain the balance. Furthermore, anyone with any information is encouraged to come forth. Together we can put an end to this mishap. Any and all sympathizers shall be eliminated immediately. Then she goes on this like inner monologue where she's like, I've never known love. Girl, it's been a week. I was done doing nothing. I was going to the underworld. So she somehow makes her way down to the underworld. She gets knocked out by one of the rebellion people like immediately, and then brought to a room with a bunch of them where they immediately tell her their names. What was the Reaper's one request yesterday? One voice says. I wouldn't call it a request, more like a fucking order. No one touches her. I still don't understand why the Reaper cares so much about her safety. She's in bed with the Elam. Her mate killed Christopher last night. If the Elam kills more of our spies, we'll be in deep shit. We don't touch the Elam's mate. We don't make contact with the Elam's mate. So again, they tell her immediately their names. I'm Gerald, that's Kane, that's Barrett, that's Bree. They tell her, listen, we put cuffs on you. They mess with your mind chips so that currently they don't know where you are, but it doesn't work forever. I don't understand how these things work temporarily. Like, can they just like snap them off and snap back on? I don't get it. And then in walks Hal. And they're like, oh, Hal, you know her. Did you meet her by chance? So she's off limits to everyone but you? And so she tells them, hey, listen, I know that the Elam is planning retribution for the attacks. They want to send the Reaper a message. In 2 days, they said they're going to ambush the underworld community. I wanted you all to know. They used the mind chip to kill your comrade who whistled at me. I'm sorry. And they're like, oh, you didn't run to your mate about that guy? I didn't run to him. Must be difficult for you going to dinners and balls dressed up like some pathetic prize. I can see why a fucking whistle scared you. She's like, listen, they have maps of everything. They know your tunnels. Yeah, we know your little mate's plans. I'm afraid that's the only reason you came. If that's the only reason you came down here, you wasted your time. The entrance I used, it was circled on the map. Then they changed their tune. They're like, why did you risk yourself in order to tell us this? I didn't want anyone else to die. She finds out that there's music and art down in the underworld, which they've stopped calling the Beneath at this point, which is weird. Or maybe there's different sublevels and I'm missing something. I don't fucking know. So she's surprised that there's music and art down there. She's like, Hal, why didn't you tell me? Would you believe me if I did? She'd probably believe anything you told her. Like that. There's never been a point where she hasn't. So her and Hal are pretty much alone, and he's like, you shouldn't have come here. Your mind chip will track you. She's like, I saw the parting, and the Starlings, they support the Reaper. I told them I would help. I told them I would get information on the Elam for the Reaper. Did they tell you to come down here? No, they told me to do nothing. Do you know them? The Reaper's network is wide. You should have listened to them. I came down here to find the Reaper. I came down here to find you. Moonlight, there's a reason I said goodbye. You are the Elam's mate. You can't do this. He isn't different. I was angry. I shouldn't have said all those things. Are you the Reaper? And he's like, that isn't the question I'm hoping you'll ask me. That wasn't a no. It wasn't a yes. What do you want me to ask? You know the question, Moonlight. Ask it. Kiss me? Ugh. This is so corny. So they kiss and it says, a firestorm of desire hollowed me out and yet filled me to the brim all in the same breath. We are reminded that they've only known each other a week by the text itself, which is hilarious. And then Kane, one of the rebellion guys, comes in and he's like, hey, those cuffs only scramble her chip for so long. And her mate is killing people. We can't afford to make mistakes. And Hal's like, yeah, I'm going. And it says, I turned to see Kane's glowering frame, fury staring back at Hal and me. I shivered at the rage in his gaze, burning into my back as we walked away. I don't know why they made this such a big deal. Hal takes her back to the surface. He's like, don't come back to the underworld. Your chip's gonna start tracking you in less than a minute. Now get, basically. Lo has been texting her and she's like, hey, I haven't heard from you. I want to, are you okay? Which is, are you okay is a question that friends ask each other. And apparently they're just like, yeah, we're friends, except we're not friends because we can't be friends, but we're friends. And so she goes and talks to Lo and she's like, Lo, the Elam are looking for defects who are working against them. They're going to be watching us. Who would work against them? People who are unhappy with how things are. People in the underworld. The underworld, where the majors live, they don't live in Lowtown. They live underground. I thought it was called The Beneath. Isn't that what the next book in this series is called? They captured a sympathizer, the guy who whistled at me before we were in the pod that one day. You remember. Did you tell them about him? But the Elam have told the elite that it was Emmeline's fault. So everybody thinks that Emmeline was working with the Elam and like helped capture that guy who whistled at her. I'm not helping them. They killed a man. The elite have this group of men who wear green called the Force. I saw them outside the sanctuary. They took Offspring away. Did that happen to you? Yes, Lo said. Lo, I'm so sorry. I don't want to talk about it. Is Gregory helping the Elam? I don't know. But Gregory isn't a bad person, Lo. Okay, Lo says. And that's it. That's the end of the conversation. Okay. If that isn't a red flag, I don't know what is. I don't know why you would trust this woman. You are told not to have friends. And the next day, she's woken up to Hal and Barrett, one of the resistance guys, in her room. They mention a woman named Thea, who is our best healer. A healer is someone who takes care of the injured and sick people. They used to be called doctors. Majors get hurt from the manual labor a lot. It was strange to think of the body getting hurt. It was unheard of on the surface. How do you possibly deliver children without the need of something like a healer? Doesn't have to be a doctor. Is there really nothing for childbirth, which this, whole thing really relies upon pretty heavily? What are we using in lieu? So then she goes into the minor, area. This is all kind of wishy-washy to me. I have very little understanding of the area in which the miners live. She notices that they're taking supplements and all of them look pretty heavily drugged. And she tells Lo, hey, you need to stop taking the supplements. Something's wrong with them. We were never giving supplements with evening meals. I snatched the supplements from my tray. And she's like, why hadn't the Reaper stopped this? Perhaps because he was injured, barely able to walk? Like how? I don't know anymore. Girl, me neither. So she's not taking the supplements. The next day, she's talking to Lo about this, and she's like Lo is shocked. She's like, they're actually drugging us. How did you figure it out? And all that Lo really wants to talk about, though, is Gregory. And Emmeline's like, Lo, they are drugging us. Isn't that a little more pressing? But Gregory doesn't seem interested, and Lo is concerned that she's not going to get a mating contract with him, and that's all she wants in life. Well, then the Force shows up because the Elam is giving out promotions for minors disobeying. She's trying to get Lo into a pod, and they run into the Force, and she tells them, my mate is a member of the Elam. One of the other comrades tells that guy, look at her fucking wrist, and she says that she can recognize the voice. I don't really know who that is, to be honest with you. She's the Enforcer's mate, you fucking idiot. Why didn't you say the Enforcer? The one closest to her spat out. You didn't seem inclined to believe me. What? That doesn't even make any sense. I'm getting tired. She goes to Colin's house. She's given a room by Nora. She's has it explained to her that things aren't black and white. Nora basically explains to her, she's like, I have 3 kids. Kids change you so fully, and you think that, you can't find room for more, and then you have another kid and your heart just grows even more and you would do anything for these kids. What you want to know is not so simple. Should anyone do bad things? No, but no one is all good or all bad. Each person has their breaking point, their line in the sand. Maybe you should find out Colin's before you write him off completely. What she's thinking about is, maybe my birth mother loves me the way that Nora loves her kids. Was I wrong about my birth mother never caring about me? Or had my status truly stifled any love from her? Emmeline asks Nora, what about you and Gregory? I thought you might have figured it out. He hasn't been careful lately. He's angry. We were both up for new mates again. I was matched with William while Gregory was assigned a minor mating. Then he found out about you and Colin. Gregory was Edward's best friend through the academy, a troublesome pair, nothing serious, but they were always up to no good. When I bled, so first period, the Elam decided I should be mated. I was 16 at the time. I was mated with Edward. My immaculate genes, as they called them, would further our society. I was 5 years older than he was, or he was 5 years older than I was. I couldn't do it the first time. Edward wasn't pleased. He raged and broke things. He changed. He became cruel. I told Edward no. He became physical with me. Gregory heard. He broke into the room. It was a mess. He beat Edward badly. He carried me out of the room. He stayed with me those next few nights, and he kept Edward away from me. I think that maybe her first daughter is actually Gregory's. I'm not really sure. The point is, her children are now at the academy, and she will undergo anything that they ask in order to keep them safe. So she will never be with Gregory because she thinks if she tries and she's found out, then her children will be harmed. And Emmeline's like, well, you guys could be together if you go to the underworld. And she's like, I would never leave my children behind in unsafety. Colin shows up and he's like, we need to maintain our public appearances. The press and the elite want to see you more, see who you are to me and to the Elam. I think the elite know what I am. They bowed to me after you told them I sent a man to his death. Tabitha wanted to send the right message. The right message. And that what? I'm subservient to you and the Elam? Everyone below the Elam is subservient to them, including the elite. Well, everyone except you. I got another report about you, by the way. I did tell you very little happens in this city that I'm not aware of. And when it comes to you, I'm aware of everything. You took a run to the river the morning after the meeting. Your heart rate was elevated several times after you stopped running. Your oxytocin and dopamine levels were elevated when you returned to your living quarters. And he's like, it's so convenient that you were relaxing by Lowtown where the cameras are outdated. Seems like a poor place for your cameras not to work. I'd have thought the Elam would want to watch the majors. Tabitha agreed with you when it was brought to the Elam's attention that my mate was in an unapproved area, so instead of leading the retribution I planned, I was sent to fix a flaw you found while simultaneously coming up with a valid reason for why you were there. Sorry to take away your chance to hurt more majors. So he didn't get to carry out a terrorist attack on the majors. And he's like, well, I had to concoct a story and now you're the new spy for the Elam to give us feedback on the minors. This is your fault, basically. Like he's telling her, I had to concoct this story and say that you're a spy to keep you safe. You went where you shouldn't have without warning me. It was the best I could come up with for why you were where you weren't supposed to be. It would be nice if you could just try to follow their rules so I wouldn't have to worry all the damn time. Their rules make me your property. And so she reaches into her bag, takes out the supplements she hasn't been taking and throws them at her. Does anyone else know you're not taking these? Strange that now I stopped taking them. I'm optimal for pregnancy, which is what her HI told her. It isn't pleasant what happens to those who don't follow the Elam. You mean don't follow you. And then suddenly it switches to them being into each other, which was a weird choice by the narrative and quite jarring. You are unlike anything I've ever known. You're maddening, consuming, unwilling to follow any of their rules. I have a role to play, and yet I spend my time thinking about you. If I leaned forward an inch, our lips would meet. My core tightened. I would tell him no, I didn't want this, an Elam. He says, tell me no, and she says, I can't. Girl, you can't? Could not be me. I'd be like, no, now, 9, goodbye. Nora walks in when they're about to kiss, and she's like, get me a pod. And before she leaves, she sees the storms in his sapphire pools winking out, his eyeballs. Yeah. And he says to her, the rules need to be followed. I'm a member of the Elam and you are my mate. You have to adhere to their rules. And if I don't, the consequences won't be pleasant. She talks to the Starling team, again, her prep team, Violet and Rose. My brother saw you in below. Who's your brother? Rajesh. He was phased out of the academy. Not all of them make it to the underworld. Many are eliminated. They eliminated young offspring? So they tell her that there's going to be moves made soon within the next few days by the rebellion. She asks about the Reaper and they tell her the Reaper, his identity is not known by many. How did the elite know him then? He has a style to him, being an efficient killer. He's very lethal, capable of taking down twice as many men And if he has time, he cuts the chips out of the elite's arms. I only know one person who had cut out their chip. Bitch, you hardly know anyone! The bar is so low! Some say he is making his own chips. Others say it's just to send a message. And some say he's taking their mind chips and raising the dead to take down everyone in the clouds. How do you raise the dead? How can you possibly raise the dead? Where is this coming from? Why is this coming into the narrative so late? Your defect mind chip isn't allowed in the clouds unless the Elam approve it, but the mind chips of the dead elite are allowed to move freely in the clouds. Scan that mind chip instead of your own, and suddenly his army is in the sky. Yes, an army. It spans from beneath to above. Are we serious that we could not have done this earlier? Okay. Why the elite though? Why not just take their mind chips and leave them? Because the chips are right by a radial artery and you risk killing anybody that if you're not extremely exact when you take it out, if you hit that, you're gonna bleed out. So he kills them for their chips or just to kill them? They kill us, marginalize us. Why shouldn't we retaliate? You thought there was a good guy and a bad guy, didn't you? How naive. And she feels bad for them because these two are gay, which I was like, oh, okay. Well, like normally when I read something written by a fundamentalist Christian, and I can name you several, they are homophobic. See here, a gentle tyranny. The only gay person is the bad guy, and they're being gay by choice because they don't allow men into their society. See also J.M. Bucklebeak's books, where the bad guys are not only gay, they're pedophiles. Because if there's one thing that Christians do, and I would know, even being, you know, I'm queer myself, but I grew up in a very anti-queer environment. If there's one thing that we're gonna do, it's demonize queer people. So Colin picks her up in a pod, and she's dressed up basically like a star. She's glittering. If I glittered like a star, he was the darkness that blanketed the night sky. Oh, is this as close as he's gonna get to being a shadow daddy? His sapphire gaze drank me in. We need to discuss our situation before this ball. I told the Elam that you've been actively spying for us the last 2 weeks, and that's why we didn't have any public appearances. You need to sell that story to the elite. You could be eliminated for your actions. Do you comprehend that? Do you understand what it feels like to watch people be eliminated? Thanks to you, I do. So what do I tell them about not being drugged by you? Your supplements were never to be altered like the others. I wouldn't let them drug you, Emmeline. So at this event, someone, I don't even remember who it was, is like talking to them and saying like there were a lot of elites who were interested in the role as Colin's mate, but there's always your next mating, Colin. He says, I have no intentions for a second mating. And then they say an Elam offspring would be a blessing. There hasn't been one in my 70 years of life. And I'm like, hold on. What do you mean an Elam offspring? Is that just an offspring of the Elam? Or do you get like absorbed into the Elam if your parent, if your dad, if your father in particular is an Elam? I genuinely don't fucking know. Because again, I don't know how somebody becomes part of the Elam. I don't know how Colin did it. These dudes are really shitty at this particular party. One asks if Emmeline doesn't speak. Would that be a bad thing? Ha 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 ha. Elite manners are the great distinguishing factor between a civilized mind and a defective one. And they're like, perhaps there's weight to the idea of whether minors are capable of being reformed. Colin sends a signal to Nora to come get Emmeline because they're, you know, being shitty in front of her. And she's like, Nora, I'm a minor. Why do you want to be my friend? Even with your eyes, Emmeline, I see a woman who has been treated unfairly. If any of my offspring had been deemed a defect at birth, I would love them all the same. We are all alike if we care to see it. Nora and Gregory then dance in front of everybody, and this is the closest they'll ever get to being together. And again, justice for Gregory! Her birth mother is there, Emmeline's birth mother, and she's like, hey, so are you happy with your mate? Does it matter? No one cares for my happiness, Helen. I care, Helen whispered. Helen, you are needed elsewhere with the retired women. Her father, Victor, shows up and is like, you have done nothing but threaten the greater good from the moment you opened your eyes. When the truth comes out, you shall meet your downfall. And never question my commitment to the Elam again. My loyalty is absolute. The only insult I have ever given them was you. Our ancestors built this city after the last war. They helped create all of this. We had a flawless lineage and unwavering loyalty, always besides the Elam, almost being one of them. Then you ruined everything. My abilities were questioned because of you. She's like, did you send me that blue dress? I didn't send you that dress, but my unending gratitude to whoever put you in the color you earned at birth. If your mother hadn't intervened, the moment I saw your eyes, you have been in blue or worse. My reward for my moment of humanity was to be stuck with the woman who gave me you. Even if you pop out some elite offspring, you will return to where you belong, but mark my words, when you fail, which you will destroy everything Colin worked for. Colin shows up with his sapphire eyes again.
Gee.
Vincent, The Elam truly are getting impatient. You should have had answers by now. It was a task beneath your intelligence. That's what you said. You should have delivered by now. You more than anyone understand the ramifications of disappointing the Elam. Now, if you'll excuse my mate, her and Colin argue again because, you know, that's how we bring up the intensity. What do you want from me, Emmeline? To be cared for, to be saved. What a stupid answer. I'm your mate, not a savior. Tabitha requests Colin because there's some issue. She goes off and fucks off to some hallway. Hal is there and they have sex in a broom closet. I want you, contract and all, Moonlight. Tell me you want me to. Hal's mouth swallowed my gasp as he began tracing my center through the soaked fabric. Heat scorched me. My conditioning slipped away, as did my contract and the rules I'd been force-fed my entire existence. This was everything I wanted. This was everything I needed. His thumb pressed against the bundle of nerves. A moan ripped from me. Shh, Moonlight, they'll hear what I do to you. His breath on my neck as he cupped the apex of my thighs. He's using, you know, digits. The fullness stretching me as his thumb rubbed tight circles over the bundle of nerves. That's 2 bundle of nerves in one schmeck scene. He says, let go, Moonlight. The name on his lips unraveled. All I was. My pleasure shattered apart. This is almost indistinguishable from a Fourth Wing schmeck scene. Fingers moving as waves of pleasure racked my body. Like, seriously, this is nearly identical. It's like somebody was like, all right, you can use my answers, but make sure you change them a little bit so that, you know, we don't get caught cheating. And it's like, oh, it's basically the same though. You're caught cheating. It's hyperbole, relax. It's very similar. She offers to do him a favor. He says, no, tonight was about you. You have to get back. She looks like a fucking mess. Her brother finds her and he's like, all right, you gotta fix this. You're covered in makeup and your hair's a mess. Then she hears an argument between Gregory and her other brother, Philip, because Philip's like, you need to accept the contract between you and Lo. And Gregory's like, fuck off, essentially. Justice for Gregory! You have to let Nora go. I will never let her go. Think of Timothy. He's at the academy now. You know Catherine wants me nowhere near him. His only son, apparently. I don't know. Although he does do that paternalistic thing where he's like, Emmeline, I want to pummel whoever left you in this state because they clearly don't care about your safety. And he also tells her that his former mate, Catherine, keeps him away from Timothy, his 5-year-old son, and that he can't see his son very much. Because she has kept him from me as much as possible. And in a patriarchal society, I'm not even sure how this is possible at all for her to do that. He asks, hey, tell me about Lola. She's funny, intense, and beautiful. She's a good person. He's like, all right, cool. Hey, if you care about that person that you were with at all, don't ever see them again. You will regret loving someone you cannot have. It will destroy you. You will spend your entire life fighting to keep a secret. And she's like, so you're going to let Nora go? He says, all I have ever done is let her go. It is as known to me as breathing. Good night, little sister. And I was like, justice for Gregory. Put Gregory in a better book. All I have ever done is let her go. Ouch. That hurt. I felt something. So again, 0.5 for Gregory alone. The rest of this book, 1 star. Her and Lo get into an argument because she's like, how is this not enough for you? You have an Elam mate. Most miners would kill to be in your place. She's like, what if it isn't what I want? Do you want to stay down here? The miners are drugged. We have no rights. And she's like, what if the underworld is better? How could it be better down there? We'd have freedom. Living underground in the garbage? Lo says, that's not freedom, that's prison. Hal and somebody else from the rebellion come pick her up. She's like, we gotta go. I have to shut down the grid. I don't want you above the surface. Why are you shutting down the grid? The grid is going black because the Reaper is ready for justice. And then they're having sex again, but like, actually like PNV stuff this time. Ow, I just poked myself. Just like bonk. Which is kind of what these dudes do in these scenes, I assume. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but it's the same thing as last time, except now it's just PNV. There was no prompting this time. There was no need for it as he thrust again, his mouth on my neck, and the release was crashing through me. He drove into me again, drawing out wave after wave of pleasure as I shattered around us. Wave of pleasure shattered around us. This is why it sounds like Fourth Wing. Dragging my nails down his back, he groaned against my climax. He groaned against my climax? How do you... Unless he's down there, which he's not. How do you groan against it? I don't know. Anyway, they talk about cutting out her chip and he's like, well, I don't want to do that because it's dangerous. You survived. So she's down in the beneath with him and she is left alone to her own devices for some reason, which sounds like a terrible idea. And she's looking at all of the rebellion's stuff. A rusty ancient gun lay out on a table. A word caught my attention, a word scribbled on a piece of paper poking out. It wasn't just a paper, it was a folder. As I lifted it, several pages fell to the ground. A ringing began in my ears as I looked at the first paper. The folder says Moonlight. My hand shook. Pages of thorough information on me, on my job, on my birth family, my defect, images of me walking into the Capitol building, images of me with Lowe, likes art, stares a lot, learn about art, has no friends, alone, hates her eyes, make her like them, make her care, easiest way to manipulate. Moonlight, I can explain. It isn't what it looks like. I felt my heart crack under the realization that both sides seemed to have a role for me, a need, not a want. Did one of those papers tell you to sleep with me, or was that just for fun? You knew exactly who I was before you showed up in my office. None of this was by accident. So it's like Dimitri and Anastasia, but worse. Were they all in on this? Not everyone was for it, but we got sick of waiting. Waiting for what, Hal? And she realizes that like the rebellion guys have been saying weird stuff that like now makes sense in context. You do her no justice by keeping her in the dark. Gerald had known my name before I even got there. I wrote all that before I even met you. We found out that you might be the Elam's mate several moons ago. I thought you could help us work from within. By making me care about you, by making you agreeable to the cause. I was someone you were willing to hurt. Emmeline, you were a job. And then I realized you meant something to me. I couldn't lose another thing I love. You love me? Yes, I do. That wasn't part of the plan. This is why you kept telling me it was dangerous. Was it protection when you left me to walk out in front of the elite with my hair and dress destroyed? So it was obvious what I had done? You knew the Elam were there. If I hadn't run into Gregory, I could have been hurt or eliminated. She says that she's been lying and protecting him, like Colin hasn't been lying to you too. So what does the Reaper actually plan on saving? Only those in blue? Mostly, they're the innocent ones. No one on the ground or the sky is innocent? Not the ones I've met. I thought the Reaper was a brave man. I thought he was better than the Elam. He isn't. There are good people up there. How can anyone win when you all hate each other? How are any of you different? And I'm like, oh, good. We're fence sitting. We're both sidesing. Awesome. She leaves. Gerald, one of the rebellion guys, says that Hal is not the Reaper. There's a bunch of attacks going on. Her brother Philip comes and gets her. He explains the Reaper's been targeting this one building for a while. They go to, I think, Colin's house, and of course Gregory is there sleeping with Nora. They all get on their case about it. They're like, no, you're right, we're done. Nora's like, no, I can't do this anymore, Gregory. We have to be done. And she's horrified by this. She's like, why is it that the Elam can't just let two people who love each other be happy together? Colin shows up, and he is in Elite Force uniform, and he's like, this is what I did before I came to be an Elam. The role that I have for the Elam is because of my work in the Elite Force. You never told me that. You never asked. You guys barely talked, so. And she's like, all of these men are bad. There were no saviors, just varying shades of morally corrupt people with varying lines in the sand. We are closer to war than ever before. She talks to the Starlings, and Violet's like, you were with the Reaper, you're saying? But he was with the attack. Did he identify himself to you? That can't be right. This is his first successful attack since the last war. He bested the Elam. He wouldn't stay behind. And then they argue because people died and she doesn't want anybody to die. And everybody's like, whenever everybody's always justifying it by saying it's a necessary byproduct of the cause. So of course she's, you know, the fence sitter and saying both sides bad, which is like the easiest position to take. She slips and says, not the Reaper, but says Hal. And they're like, Hal, is that who you were with yesterday? Wasn't he the one behind the dress? And this is where she finds out that Hal is the one who sent the blue dress for her to be embarrassed in. She asks Nora, do you believe in the greater good? And Nora says, it depends on which greater good you're referring to. It's just a matter of perspective. Everybody's greater good is going to be different. And so they're talking about the Reaper, and she says, Nora, you never called the Reaper a man. Who says it has to be a man? Maybe a woman is tired of being a vessel. And so it was at this point where I'm like, oh, so is Alice the Reaper then? Her friend who was killed, or I guess not killed? And at this point I realized I actually don't give a shit who the Reaper is, because none of this really has any emotional impact on me whatsoever. Nothing is surprising, nothing is exciting here. Colin picks her up and takes her to go talk to the Elam, and he's like, listen, you're a spy. You have to act. He calls her Moonlight. He's like, you're a spy, you're a spy, you're a spy, you're a spy. Keep to the plan. So Tabitha, the leader of the Elam, is finally there in person. And the other person who's there is a guy named Charles, who apparently is also an Elam member. Again, I don't know how many there are or what this means. I don't fucking know. Tabitha clearly knows that there's something between Hal and Emmeline. She's like, oh, you don't want to look at Emmeline, Hal? She sure can't stop looking at you. He fought rather hard, but he has a chip again. Isn't it wonderful? Hal is taken away, and Emmeline is told that she has to go talk to Tabitha alone. Colin and her have a conversation before she leaves where she's like, he asked her, did you plan to join the rebellion? My involvement with the Reaper is none of your business. It's entirely my business. What was the plan? Spying on me to get information on the Elam? Infiltrate the Elam from within? I don't have to answer to you. I am your mate. You do answer to me. You have to answer to the Elam now, to Tabitha. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. I don't care. They will destroy the people you love to destroy you. I've watched them do it, Emmeline. You mean them. You are an Elam. So Tabitha and her talk alone after Tabitha tells Colin that he has to go oversee her Emmeline's living quarters being emptied and everything moved into his house. I will personally make sure your property makes it back to your living quarters in one piece, Colin, referring to Emmeline. So he says, see you soon, and that's the last we see from Colin in this book. Oh, and one more thing she tells Colin before Tabitha leaves is the one who actually informed us that the Reaper deserves an award. They shall fill you in on the way. You will oversee that. Ensure she gets what she wants. I dare say she's been trying to achieve it for long enough. So this is referring to Lo, who has been telling them every single thing that Emmeline has ever said to her. So they go into a room, Tabitha and Emmeline, and Tabitha's like, sorry I'm covered in blood. I forget how they bleed. He wouldn't give me the information I wanted. And so at this point I'm thinking, wait, are the Elam like robots or something? Because like that wouldn't be a terrible idea, but if that's the truth, then it did not come up in this book. Are they like robots in skin suits that are dictating the wills of humans? Because we could have done something really interesting with that. Like imagine humans finding out, oh my God, we've been being dictated by AI in skin this whole time. We have to fight back against Skynet. That could have been a really interesting book. But again, like we just did 2 bad romances in the span of a week here instead. I've been using you as elite entertainment. You are an anomaly. Colin didn't want to do a trial, but I decided to conduct my own trial on you. You're going to restore our peace. You have primed us to destroy everyone who is standing against us. If you even attempt to help them, Hal will be eliminated. Your spying has ended. The other Elam, Charles in particular, okay, how many others are there? I'm dying to know, had petitioned for your instant elimination now that we have the Reaper. No foresight, men. It would be a mercy to you, and I would lose the leverage on the Reaper and his pathetic followers. We can't have that. Plus, there's no fun in it. Death is quick. I learned that the hard way the first time. Again, I feel like that was hinting at her being a robot, kind of. I don't know. We've tried to show you that all these emotions make things messy. That was the other thing that I felt like was robotic. We provided you with roles, mates, sustenance. We maintain stability through these resources, but it isn't enough for you. It's never enough. You insist on letting these emotions dictate your lives. Hal told us you were just another faceless miner, but then I pulled your chip and ordered them to eliminate you. It's a shame you missed the way he begged, how quickly he fell apart. Oh, we're almost done. Thank God. I'm gonna go eat French fries. If you fight, I will eliminate him. He will help me because if not, I will eliminate you. The game is simple. Who loves whom more? The winner lives and the loser dies. And in Colin, you are creating the most splendid Elam member, eradicating the little humanity, hope, and kindness he had left. Oh, and Lola. Lola is her given name, but she didn't tell you that among other things. The secrets she was willing to share for her contract, what she handed over for her cohabitation rights, that is power. Lo had betrayed me. Tell me everything, Emmeline. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me what happened. Tell me. You wouldn't believe how many slithered back to us, desperate to give us information, creating the perfect balance. And for the majors, offspring are such a glorious way to cause fear. Almost all mothers will do anything you ask when you hold their offspring. Did you not know there are offspring down there? They do not tell many, especially those who go down from above. While you were spying the other day, you were seen. That information got back to Lola and she came running. I planted a story that your disloyalty had been found out and you were to be eliminated in front of the elite. They came running. Now, I have their offspring, I have the Reaper, and I have you. The Elam, again, have the power. You can't hurt the offspring. They didn't do anything. Keep me instead. Foolish child, I already have you. We wouldn't harm the offspring. We will indoctrinate them. Make the majors adhere to our peaceful life. You control the youth. You control them all. Hitler literally said that. And you know what's funny? You know who said that recently? The Tennessee Federation of Republican Women and Moms for Liberty have both quoted that line from Hitler in a positive way. We would only hurt the children if the majors don't fall in line, and they will. Why me? Drink more tea and I will tell you. She gives her an answer, but it's like, I don't know, you were just basically picked. And the tea had drugs in it. And so she gets taken away. She's put in a pod, but she recognizes the voices of the people who have picked her up. Emmeline, can you hear me? What did they give her? Emmeline, we have you. It'll be okay. In the epilogue, we get a different POV. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure if this is Hal or Alice. It could go either way. And honestly, it has no impact on me whatsoever. Mismatched eyes flash before mine, afflicted with disconcerting curiosity. I was a captive from the first time I saw them. Her left eye was the clearest blue. Blue! Oh my god, my mouth is done. A representation of her duality. Duality? Emmeline has duality? Emmeline doesn't have singularity. Emmeline has nothing. She's cardboard. The destruction that dichotomy created in her mind, unseen and unknown to everyone around her. I saw it immediately, knew it. Her. It had been Emmeline who had brought me here. She had been a step in a plan, just a step until she wasn't. My supporters and spies in the clouds remained my secret alone. I wasn't leading a rebellion. This was a revolution. My love for her clung to me as stubborn as she was. Even if she would never return it, the mask it fought against the very thing that made her hate me. Imagine my delight knowing you are here. Tell me, Reaper, are you ready to talk now? I always wondered what would break you. The woman's smile gleamed in the dark. And that's the end. That was Conform. Ah, God, I am so relieved to be done. Oh my God, I've been talking for 100 minutes. My throat hurts. All right, so what did we learn? Nothing. We learned nothing. This was pointless. And again, it's not like you can't talk about class and make a good story. You absolutely can. This just didn't do anything of substance whatsoever. I look at stories like Gear Breakers and then I look at this and I'm like, what was the point? And I shouldn't come away from a dystopian asking what was the point. That I feel like is the bare minimum. I should know the point in a dystopian. Otherwise, like, why not just pick why not just write a romance? Obviously, like, this would still need to work on its romance elements in order to be a good romance book, and I love romance books, but if you're not going to do romance elements or dystopian elements, well, why not just pick one and focus on it? Why do both badly? This is really disappointing because this got this was available in the advanced listener copies from Libro. This author was sent to Miami Book Fair. I mean, like, this got a fair amount of effort put in from its publishers in a way that actually, good point, Spin of Fate didn't. And to me, that's just bonkers because this, I feel like, deserved it. I'm not sure what we were even doing here in Conform and why it matters and why people would like it. Like, I'm searching, and if you like it, I'm happy for you, but I'm looking for something and I'm not seeing it. Like, I can understand why somebody likes Fourth Wing because even though to me it's not well written, I can understand that people are finding certain elements of it appealing that I am simply not. Here, I don't see that at all. I can't say, I would recommend this to if you like such and such. These characters are such nothing burgers that I can't think of anybody who would genuinely like it. I don't know what they would like about it. Like, even if I step back, like, objectively and say, like, what about them is compelling to somebody who just has different tastes than me, I genuinely can't answer the question. This is really disappointing. I feel like other books deserve the amount of effort and labor that the marketing of this got. Like, this deserved that. I'm so frustrated. Like, the amount of effort that Brandon Sanderson puts into his world is the amount of effort that went into this, and this doesn't get that kind of push. But, like, this is a classist dystopia, and if there's marketing money to push those books, then why not this? And why not this? I don't get it. So is this worse than Silver Elite? In a way, and in a way it's the same. I don't really know. It depends. Like, I feel like Ren feels like more of a person, even though her motivations change from scene to scene. But in this, I just don't know who my characters are, and I don't know why anybody should care. I genuinely can't think of why anybody would want to continue. Like, there's nothing here. Nothing even happened. Okay, if you made it this far, I don't know, leave, one eye for, the eye, the heterochromia thing. Just leave one eyeball emoji or two. I don't care. Do you. Do what you want to do. I'm not the Elum. I'm not in power here. I'm exhausted. Leave your favorite dystopian book down below if you have read Gear Breakers or Spin of Fate or the Lights graphic novel. I would love to chat about them. And obviously, like, I'm a huge Hunger Games fan, so I do like dystopian So anything, and I like romance, so adding those together in theory should work for me, and it's sad when they don't. So if you have some recommendations, leave them below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye! And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons. I will say that these no longer show up on Patreon in alphabetical order, so sorry about that. And those thank yous go to Lex, SJ, Eric, Peggy Lou, Quinn, Rain, Scarlett, John E, Alexander, Samar, Ashley H, DJ Rocktopus, Kaleno K, Emerald Dodge, Ellie, Minby, Steph B, Lemon Jelly, Mixer Boneless, Lily, 3 Raccoons in a Trench Coat, Lady Chips Loves Pride, Call Me Kodiak, Ree Mirage, Katya, Melissa, Kai Brecker has not read 6 of Crows, Lex, Megwin, Maddie Miss, Not So Secretly a Skeleton, Jory, Piloting SRN, Bex, Fox Waifu, Charlie Bear, Ricky Strong. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And a quick thank you to my Potato Starch Marxists, Evie, Carlin, Paige P, Sean, Sarah the Bear, Jill, Talia, Corwin, Andy Mations, Darren, Tito Phoenix, Might Be a Magpie, Martin, Artie the Ninth, Hannah C, Shamed, Ava, Malara, Rachel B, Rebecca, Baywing, Amanda, Lustful Octopus, Lady Kittybug, Angelica, Jenny G, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Laughing Cat Dog, Dorothea Supports Public Education, Nicole G, Colleen, Sarah H, Sheen Onion, Fox Club, Danielle M, Kendra, Sakoria, Kayala, Sadie Selby, Bookish Rabbit, Caitlin M, Rosie Thorns, Penny Chilling, Katie L, Lou Siri, Aaron with 2 E's, Jen Michelle, LP, Jojo Bookish, Jessa Sue, Lazarus Ray, Casper, Genderqueer, Jelly V, Lauren G, Man-Eating Plant, Kate W, Sakia Lume, Lindsay M, Gadarn, Dilf Enthusiast, KMTV, Kaylee Carpenter, Alejandra, Desiree Michelle, Darius, Triple M, Saintbringer, Bookish B, Bookish by Jenna, Althea, Megan, Francis, Kate B, Plague Carrier, Jackalope Max, Queen Cereal, Pandemonium, Mataraptor, Rosemary K, Drive By Thinker, Juicy Wizard, Sophie L, Barry B, I Like My Women Like I Like My Books Thick, Mima Who, Katrina, Unicorn Jenny, That One Cute Chick, Hurry Sing, Myth Lesbian, This Is Not a Trap, Laura is Angry, Rhea Slagle, Morgan, Celeste, Macy Jane, Aaron S, Danita M, Cosmic Frog, Jesse, Rach, Kayla Alexander Kenny, Ren, Natural Blues, NM Rap, Che, Jing, Katuary, Taz, Miss Fox and Arda, Mac, Junie for Now, Gabby Z, T Foxbones, Pi, Adian, Mia, Fishy Fish, Chloe M, Luke has sleep token brain rot, hell yeah. Kath, Kellen R, Blubbles the Fish, Cass Plays, Jesse M. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend.